Hey guys, tonight we're doing something a little dusty. Imagine this. You open your eyes and you're lying on cold, gritty stone. Not tile, not hardwood. Actual echoing prehistoric rock. Your breath comes out in little puffs, foggy in the chilly morning air. And the first thing you notice, besides the freezing temperature, is the smell. Earthy, smoky, faintly gamey. Definitely no lavender-scented diffuser in here. Also, you're barefoot. That becomes very real when your toes brush against something vaguely slimy, maybe moss, maybe something worse. Either way, you're already regretting whatever it is you drank before bed. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. This one's going to be slow, sleepy, and full of the kind of mildly horrifying details your history textbook skipped. Comment where you're watching from and what time it is. We're time travelling tonight, after all. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not in your bedroom anymore. No mattress, no AC hum, no distant neighbour binge-watching reality TV. Instead, it's silence, thick and solid, broken only by the soft drip of condensation from a stalactite above. You blink a few more times, and your eyes begin adjusting to the ambient grey-blue glow filtering in from what looks like a cave entrance. It's early morning, maybe. The sun hasn't broken fully over the horizon, but there's just enough light to outline the uneven stone walls around you. The ground beneath you is dirt and scattered straw, maybe some animal skin layered beneath. A pitiful excuse for a bed by modern standards, but up here in the Paleolithic times, though you don't know it's called that yet, it's luxury. There's a lingering warmth to the spot you slept in, like the rock itself held onto a little body heat out of pity. But your feet are still blocks of ice, and every exhale curls like steam. As you sit up, the ache in your back and neck reminds you that Stone Age ergonomics are non-existent. You stretch. You regret that too. Something cracks, hopefully not a rib, and then the next realization hits. You're very much alone. Or are you? Not for long. Somewhere in the cave a body stirs. Another. Shadows shift. A flicker of movement near the smouldering remains of a fire. And suddenly you're aware that this wasn't your private nap zone. This is a shared space and you're the unfamiliar element. You stay still. Let them notice you first, maybe. Good instincts. Because as the others start to sit up, men, women, children, all dressed in layers of ragged fur and leather, it's clear that no one expected you here. Not like this. There's a moment of frozen surprise on both ends. One guy looks at you like you've got a third eye. A woman whispers something in a language you don't know but sort of feel in your gut. A little girl behind her clutches a carved bone doll and ducks behind her mother's legs. And then comes the noise, grunting, shuffling, questioning tones, the beginnings of what might be alarm. You raise your hands, palms open, universal symbol for please don't bash my head in with a rock. It works, sort of. No one rushes you. But the tension in the air, thick enough to chew. Okay, reality check, you probably won't survive this. Statistically speaking, modern humans who get dropped into prehistoric times without tools, training, or decent footwear have a very high chance of ending up dead. Or worse, protein. You're one bad look away from becoming part of someone's breakfast menu. But hey, at least you're here for the story. Speaking of breakfast, the smoky scent of last night's fire carries notes of charred meat, damp wood, and... wait, is that mammoth? Could be. There's a distinct musk to it, like wet dog mixed with old stew. A half-burned femur lies near the embers, and there's marrow, still glistening inside. Delicious, if you've never had toothpaste or the luxury of refrigeration. Now, the walls of the cave are rough and uneven, formed by thousands of years of water and erosion. You can see deep gouges where fire has scorched the ceiling. Some patches are blackened with soot, others shine with the oily residue of animal fat torches. There's a dark beauty to it, like a cathedral built by nature, then co-opted by people who knew how to survive in the cracks of time. You inch toward the fire for warmth, keeping your eyes down, trying not to challenge anyone. It's not submission exactly, it's survival. One of the men, wiry and scarred with a jawline sharp enough to cut flint, watches you closely. He doesn't speak. He just chews something stringy and tears off a hunk of it with yellowed teeth. Then he tosses a bit of it your way. You catch it, barely, and stare at the offering. It's meat or something pretending to be. Cooked, sure. Probably mammoth, maybe bison. Your stomach votes yes, your brain hesitates. But hunger wins. You take a bite. It's gamey, gritty, and somehow both dry and greasy. A mouthful of survival. Someone laughs. Not at you, but because apparently eating weird meat is a great icebreaker. The tension thins just a little. Just enough. And that's when you hear it. Low, guttural sounds from outside. A wind blowing across open plains. Maybe wolves. Maybe just wind. Either way, it reminds you that the cave is protection. From what? You're not totally sure yet. Here's your historical nugget for tonight. By this point, roughly 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens have already spread far and wide, using caves like these as shelter, workspaces, and literal canvas. Cave paintings, totally a thing. Though right now, the only art you see is mud handprints and what might be a prehistoric attempt at a smiley face. Or an owl. Hard to say. Fringe fact, the air in caves like this could sometimes become mildly toxic after too many fires without proper ventilation. So yes, you may also slowly be getting carbon monoxide poisoned. Sweet dreams. And just to stir your overthinking brain one more time before we settle, scholars still debate how these early humans interacted with Neanderthals. Was it peaceful, violent, a Tinder match gone very, very wrong? There's no consensus. But the stories in these rocks, they're older than nations. So now, you huddle closer to the fire, surrounded by strangers who are quickly becoming your only allies. The fire cracks, the cave sighs, and somewhere in the shadows, a soft snore rises. It's going to be a long night, or life. Depending on whether or not you learn to nap flint and make peace with eating grubs, you start to realise just how unprepared you are about 10 minutes after your first bite of mystery meat. Because you've got nothing. No phone, no flashlight, no water bottle, no protein bar tucked in your pocket. Just in case. The pockets, by the way, are gone too. You're in, what, a hospital gown? Long t-shirt? Some kind of linen tunic that's now so caked with dirt it could probably qualify as early camouflage. You pat yourself down with faint hope. No keys, no watch, not even lint. It's just you and the weird, gnawing knowledge that civilization is a few tens of thousands of years in the future. When you finally push yourself up to standing, a few people glance your way. No sudden movements. Your knees crack loudly, because of course they do, and you wince as bare feet meet pebbled stone. The temperature's just warm enough to avoid frostbite, but cold enough to make you wish socks had been invented already. Every breath feels wet and close in your throat. Cave air is heavy, and there's a lingering musk that you're beginning to realise isn't the cave at all. It's the people. Or more specifically, the layers of sweat, smoke, and unwashed skin they all wear like perfume. Outside the cave's mouth, light sharpens. You can see it pouring in over the lip of the rock, hazy and golden. A few of the tribe shuffle that way, moving slowly, wrapped in thick furs that hang awkwardly off their shoulders. You trail behind at a respectful distance, unsure if you're supposed to follow, but terrified of being left alone in the cave with only a half-chewed bone in your thoughts. Outside, the world hits you like a punch in the lungs. The air is fresh and cold and smells like pine, dung, and something floral you can't quite place. Your bare feet land on packed earth and frost-slick grass, and you immediately regret stepping outside without shoes. But the view, wow. Rolling plains stretch in every direction, punctuated by boulders, scraggly trees, and the occasional herd of something too big and hairy to exist in your normal century. Off in the distance, a small group of shaggy figures graze peacefully. Maybe aurochs, maybe ancient bison. Whatever they are, they have horns and attitude. Here's your first survival quiz. What do you do when you have no tools, no language, no idea where or when you are, and everyone around you thinks you're a smelly ghost or unlucky omen? Answer. You keep quiet, copy what everyone else is doing, and hope no one notices that you've never held a spear in your life. A thin woman with sharp cheekbones and a thick braid watches you closely. She's got something like a purse, a netted pouch slung over her shoulder and filled with roots, dried leaves, and some kind of berries. She squints at you, then makes a motion. Come here, help me? It's vague. You mimic her expression. Nonchalant, a little blank. An inch forward, like you're not mentally screaming. She drops a root into your hand. It's soft and slightly muddy, like a carrot that's been buried in wet sand. She motions for you to sniff it. You do. Earthy, slightly bitter, not immediately repulsive. She nods approving, then mimics chewing. You bite a corner. It's not good, not bad, just plant. But apparently that's enough to pass the test. She moves on. You've just joined the foraging team. The tribe isn't that large, maybe 20 people. You get the sense they don't all sleep in the cave. Some are out already, maybe hunting, maybe doing something else entirely. The ones around you now are mostly women. 2 older men with long grey beards, and a few children who look at you with wide, suspicious eyes. You're the novelty. A walking question mark. Someone coughs behind you, a Jewer hacking sound, and you turn to see a younger man bundled in thick animal hides. He's got a crude spear slung over one shoulder, and what might be the remains of a rabbit hanging from his belt. He eyes you warily, but there's something curious in his posture. A slow circling as if he's measuring your threat level. You stay still, offering a tight, awkward smile. No reaction. He looks past you toward the fields. This is where the contrast between your world and theirs really sets in. Because out here, everything is real. And by real, we mean immediately life or death. No vending machines, no coffee shops, no just one-click Amazon delivery. If you want food, you find it. If you want warmth, you build a fire. If you want to survive, you earn it. But back to your inventory. You've got absolutely nothing. No blade, no matches, no useful skill, not even a good Stone Age beard to blend in. You feel the weight of that emptiness more with each step. Now for a quirky tidbit, there's evidence that some Upper Paleolithic people use primitive bags or pouches, likely made from hide or woven fibres, to carry small items. Think of it like the Stone Age version of your favourite tote bag, minus the ironic slogans. You'd kill for one of those right now just to store something useful, like a rock, or your dignity. Historically, this period, the Upper Paleolithic, is when Homo sapiens really start to diversify culturally and technologically. They begin to specialise. Some people forage, others hunt, others make tools or work with hides. You're currently useless in all categories. A walking liability with a bad attitude and no idea how to build a lean-to, or distinguish edible mushrooms from death traps. And here's something scholars still debate. Were Paleolithic tribes mostly egalitarian? Did everyone share tasks and responsibilities fairly? Or were there already hints of hierarchy, power dynamics, and early social stratification? It's unclear. You're hoping they're more communal living than tribal Game of Thrones, but the jury's still out. By the time the sun climbs higher, you've followed the group out across an open meadow. They move quietly, scanning the ground, pointing at certain plants, digging with simple wooden tools. You mimic, you try, you fail. You accidentally pick something that smells like burnt rubber, and immediately get a look from the braid lady that says, "Don't touch that again, ever." Eventually you manage to contribute. A handful of nuts that pass inspection. They taste awful, but they're technically edible. A few of the children laugh when you make a face, and one offers you a squishy fruit in return. You accept. It's better than the nuts. Slightly. As the sun arcs overhead and the air warms, you realise your feet are bleeding just a little. Tiny cuts from rocks and thorns. The idea of shoes becomes a fixation. You look down at one woman's boots, stitched hide with fur lining, and wonder how many raccoons had to die to make them. Then you wonder if raccoons even exist here yet. Probably not. Everything you thought you knew feels slippery and unreliable. By the time you're headed back toward the cave, your stomach's rumbling again, your fingers are cold, and your dignity is fraying like a poorly tanned leather strap. But hey, you didn't die, and maybe, just maybe, you're starting to earn your place among them. By the time you shuffle back into the cave with your meagre handful of nuts and a bruised sense of purpose, something in the air feels different, heavier. The light filtering through the entrance has dimmed slightly, casting long shadows that stretch like lazy fingers across the stone floor. Smoke from the fire curls in thick grey spirals, creating layers of haze that catch in your throat and make your eyes sting a little. Someone has thrown more kindling on the coals, and the warmth is spreading unevenly, licking at the cold corners of the cavern like an animal trying to claim the space. It's not exactly cosy, but it's the closest thing to comfort you've got now. A few of the group are sitting cross-legged near the fire, picking through the day's finds, roots, berries, strips of sinew drying on stones. A hunk of something unidentifiable is roasting slowly on the spit, crackling as fat drips onto the embers below. You drop your haul beside the rest, but trying to look casual like, yes, I totally know which ones are edible and which ones kill you in about 5 minutes. No one congratulates you, but no one glares either, which might be the Stone Age version of a standing ovation. As you settle into a spot near the warmth, one of the older men, grey-beard, eyes like flint, grunts and tosses something at you. You flinch, naturally. It lands in your lap with a dull thud. A stick? No. A tool. A rough, palm-sized stone blade chipped crudely along one edge. It's been used a lot. The grip is smoothed down with the oil of many hands. You pick it up carefully, turn it over in your fingers. It's not sharp in the modern sense, but it's dangerous enough to open skin if you're not careful. He makes a gesture. Use it. You look down and see a thick root in front of you, the kind that needs slicing before chewing. You brace it against a rock and take your first awkward chop. Doesn't go well. You miss. Then you miss again. The third time you make contact, but the blade skitters and slices your thumb instead. Not deep, but it bleeds immediately. Red against pale dirt. You hiss and jerk your hand away. There's laughter. Not cruel, just amused. Someone hands you a strip of hide and you wrap it around your thumb, trying to act like it doesn't sting. A woman next to you takes the root and slices it cleanly in one fluid motion, then hands it back. Her smirk says, "It's okay. You'll get there. Maybe." So, welcome to the Upper Paleolithic, roughly 40,000 to 10,000 years ago. You're smack in the middle of it, based on the stone tools and the presence of cave paintings, which you haven't fully noticed yet but are definitely lurking nearby. This was a time when Homo sapiens were beginning to behave in ways we'd recognise as, well, kinda human. Symbolic thinking, art, jewellery, burial rituals, and yes, the invention of tools with specific purposes. Cutting, scraping, carving, maybe even shaving if someone got bold. There's a certain rhythm to life here. It's not fast, but it's constant. You eat, you scrape, you forage, you try not to die. Repeat, every day. All of it unfolding against a backdrop of uncertainty. Will a hunt be successful? Will the weather turn? Will another tribe show up and ruin everything? As your thumb throbs beneath its makeshift bandage, you glance around the cave with new eyes. The walls aren't just rough surfaces anymore. You notice patterns, scratches, smears, shapes. Some of them are deliberate. Above the fire, in a patch of wall blackened with soot, you spot faint handprints. Pale outlines left by someone blowing pigment over a hand pressed flat to the rock. It gives you a chill, that ghostly reminder. Someone stood right here, thousands of years ago, doing something not necessary for survival, just for expression, for memory. Fringe fact: some of those prehistoric handprints appear to have missing fingers. No one knows exactly why. Were they amputations, rituals, artistic choices? One theory suggests people folded fingers down when making prints to create symbols. Another, darker idea is frostbite. Either way, it's unsettling in the half-light of the cave, staring at phantom hands frozen in time. You shuffle a little closer to the drawings. No one stops you. In fact, a few of the group watch to see what you'll do. The wall here is a canvas of faded ochre, charcoal, and some kind of earthy yellow pigment. You see outlines of animals, big ones, bison, deer, maybe a woolly rhinoceros. One figure dominates the centre, all muscle and curve, its thick legs frozen mid-gallop. There's movement in the lines, a rhythm that feels alive even after all these centuries. This is your first real clue about who these people are. Not just how they live, but how they think. They're not just surviving. They're recording, remembering, maybe even worshipping. The images aren't just pictures, they're stories. And you? You've walked straight into their mythology. A boy sits down next to you, no older than 10, and hands you a stick of charcoal. He makes a gesture. Go on, draw. You glance at the wall, then back at him. There's a half-joking temptation to sketch a smiley face or write your name, but something about the weight of the space holds you still. Instead, you mimic what you see. Rough curves, thick lines, a kind of animal that might be a deer. It's clumsy, but the boy nods, satisfied. Here's the scholarly debate of the night. Why did early humans start making art in the first place? Was it religious, instructional, recreational? No one knows for sure. Theories abound. Some say it was magic, a way to influence hunts. Others believe it was communication, or even boredom relief. but every explanation feels like a guess wrapped in another guess. You sit back, your fingers stained black, and glance again at the walls. It feels like you've added your fingerprint to a gallery older than most cities, and even if it fades, it's there for now. A tiny mark of your strange accidental presence in the vast flow of time. Outside, the light continues to fade. Shadows deepen. The temperature drops again, curling its way into the corners of the cave. You hear the soft padding of feet as others return. More hunters, maybe. One carries something heavy and wet slung over his shoulder. Another drops a bloody antler on the ground near the fire. There's chatter now, low and rhythmic. The day's stories are being exchanged in a language you don't speak, but you understand the tone. Relief, hunger, fatigue. You move back toward the warmth, careful not to bump anyone. Your place is still fragile, but as the fire flickers higher and the scent of cooking meat drifts into your nostrils, you notice something unexpected. You're not entirely afraid anymore. You're sore, hungry, confused, and deeply gross, but you've made it through a whole day in the Paleolithic. The boy with the charcoal curls up near you, using a folded hide as a pillow. One of the women offers you a chunk of meat on a stick. You nod your thanks. It tastes better than breakfast, but maybe that's just hunger. You lean back against the wall, thumb still wrapped, hands still dirty, stomach slowly filling. Somewhere deeper in the cave, a child laughs in their sleep. You close your eyes for a moment, just to rest them, just for a second. You don't sleep much that night. You try, sure. You even find a somewhat flatter patch of ground near the fire, and a folded up hide that smells mostly of smoke and only a little like something that used to be alive. But sleep, not really. The cave is alive with quiet noise, the slow shifting of bodies, the dry snuffling of someone with a blocked nose, the occasional soft grunt or cough that seems to echo fivefold in the stone chamber. And the fire, always the fire, crackling gently, popping now and then like it has thoughts of its own. You doze off for 10-15 minutes at a time, then wake again with a start, disoriented and sore. Sometimes it's the cold creeping into your feet. Sometimes it's the snore of the big guy to your left who sounds like a dying bear. Sometimes it's just your brain, kicking into high gear with a helpful reminder, hey, you're trapped in the Stone Age and might die tomorrow, sweet dreams. The next morning comes slowly, without much ceremony. The cave begins to glow in increments, the mouth of it blooming with soft golden light as the sun edges over the distant horizon. People stir. No one yawns dramatically. No one stretches luxuriously. It's more of a grim shuffle, like they've been dreaming of running and now have to run again for real. Your body aches, your back is furious. Your neck feels like it slept directly on a rock, which it basically did. And your feet? They are now decorated with small scabs, splinters, and a healthy dusting of cave filth. Lovely. Still, you get up, because what else are you going to do? Ask for a refund? You limp toward the fire. Someone's already stoking it. Adding dry bark and what looks like old dung. It stinks, but it burns. Another person is poking through yesterday's foraged items, deciding which ones are breakfast-worthy and which ones are destined for the reject pile. Your stomach makes a decision before you do. Hunger has no pride. Today, though, you're not the only one looking lost. A few of the tribe's younger members are gathered near the entrance, not doing anything in particular, just watching the horizon. There's a tension in their bodies, a stillness that feels loaded. You step closer, trying to follow their line of sight. Nothing obvious out there, just mist curling across the plains and a couple of lazy birds in the sky. One of them glances at you, then makes a circular motion with their hand. It means something, probably weight, maybe trouble, or possibly that thing you did yesterday was really dumb. You nod like you understand, because pretending confidence seems safer than asking. Back inside, people start emerging from the deeper parts of the cave. Small tunnels and offshoot chambers you hadn't dared explore yet. One of them is an older woman with hair like dry grass and a necklace made of teeth. She doesn't speak much, but when she does, others listen. She casts a quick glance at you, then mutters something to the man with the stone knife. He nods, and then, without warning, you're surrounded. Not in a scary way, no one's drawing weapons, but a tight half-circle forms around you. They want something. You're not sure what until one of them steps forward and hands you a stick. Not just a stick. A long, carved spear with a sharpened stone tip and sinew bindings. It's heavy, crude, deadly. You hold it awkwardly, not sure if you should pose or throw it or hand it back. Then the man with the knife claps his hands once and points outside. You're going hunting. Or at least they're going hunting and have decided to bring the weird time traveller along. You swallow hard and follow them out. The morning air bites. Mist lingers low to the ground, clinging to grass and hiding the uneven terrain. You move slowly, trying not to trip or look completely out of place. But let's face it, you're wearing what amounts to a furry potato sack and walking like someone just learning to use legs. You're not blending in. The hunting party, about 8 people, mostly men, a couple of focused looking women, moves in a low, purposeful line. You try to imitate their crouch walk. They make minimal noise. You snap a stick in half with your first misstep and get a glare from Scarjaw. Noted. Eventually you reach a shallow depression in the land where the grass grows taller and a few trees cluster like they're gossiping. Everyone crouches. You do too, now genuinely out of breath. Then someone gestures sharply, pointing ahead. And there it is, your first real prehistoric beast. It's not a mammoth, thankfully. This is smaller, more deer-like, maybe a giant elk. It stands at the edge of the clearing, twitching its ears, unaware of the danger hiding just beyond the mist. Its antlers are massive, its fur glistens slightly in the morning light, and all you can think is, I'm supposed to help kill that? The hunters split. 2 peel off to circle left, 2 go right, the others stay low, waiting for the signal. Scarjaw motions for you to stay still. You don't argue. Your grip tightens on the spear, heart hammering in your chest. This is the part in a movie where the music would swell right before someone dies dramatically. But out here, there's no soundtrack, just breath and heartbeat and grass rustling underfoot. The signal comes, a short, sharp, bird-like whistle, and suddenly everything moves at once. The elk jerks its head, takes a step, then bolts. Spears fly, shouts erupt. You stand frozen for half a second and then remember to do something. You throw your spear. It goes wide, way wide, embarrassingly wide, possibly a danger to nearby trees, but it doesn't matter. 2 spears hit the target, one in the flank, one near the shoulder. The elk stumbles. Another hunter rushes forward with a club, finishing the job. It's quick, brutal, efficient. You stand there breathing hard, watching the steam rise off the dying body, and realise 2 things. You've never been this close to something dying before. You might throw up. One of the women walks over, retrieves your wayward spear and hands it back to you with a neutral expression. There's no teasing, just quiet understanding. You showed up, that's something. Here's a fun Paleolithic fact for the day. Some tribes used cooperative hunting methods so sophisticated they involved traps, strategic ambushes, and signals passed silently over distances. People underestimate early humans, thinking they were all wild-eyed cave screamers with clubs. But no, they had strategy, they had roles, they had expectations. You're just now being measured against those. And scholars still argue over exactly how much language these groups had. Were they communicating with full grammar, or just grunts and gestures? Was meaning deeply embedded in tone and rhythm? You suspect it's more advanced than we give credit for. There's too much coordination here, too much nuance, for it all to be noise. The kill is dragged back towards camp using wooden poles. You help, gripping the rear end of the elk with cold, slippery hands. The others glance at you, and one of them nods. You nod back, covered in blood, reeking of sweat and smoke and morning mist. You have officially helped murder your first prehistoric animal. Congratulations. Back at the cave, the kids cheer. Meat means survival. Meat means maybe, just maybe, another week of safety. The older woman with the toothed necklace chants something as they haul the carcass into the cave's shade. Scarjaw passes you on the way in, smacks your shoulder once, not hard, and grunts. You think it's approval? You're part of the tribe now, sort of. The smell hits you before you see it. Gamey, coppery, musky, with a tang of blood that's still a little too warm. You step back instinctively as the elk's body is dragged toward the centre of the cave, the flattened spot where the fire burns low and steady. The ground beneath it is already slick with ash and grime, but now it will be streaked with red. You try not to stare, but you can't look away either. The body still twitches slightly, nerves doing their final little dance. The kids don't flinch. One even pokes at the leg, clearly sizing up the next meal. There's no ceremony, no hesitation. A few of the tribe's hunters gather around the carcass and begin working, each knowing exactly what to do. One slices into the underbelly with a chipped flint knife, sawing through hide and tissue in long, deliberate strokes. Another peels the skin back like unwrapping a steaming oversized burrito, while someone else crouches near the head, using a sharp-edged bone to cut into the neck tendons. The smell intensifies. Blood, offal, warm flesh. You turn your head and try to breathe through your mouth, which is worse. Now you can taste it too. But this is breakfast. Welcome to it. A woman beckons you closer. She holds out a chunk of something pale and slick, raw marrow, fresh from a snapped femur. You hesitate. She waits. This is probably one of those moments where refusal is offensive and your hunger is already burning a pit in your stomach, so you take it. It's warm and gelatinous and weirdly creamy. Your first instinct is to gag, but instead you chew and nod. It tastes like nothing you've ever eaten. Kind of fatty, a little sweet, and surprisingly satisfying. She smiles and wipes her hands on a fur. Now they start dividing the kill, working in a quiet, practiced rhythm. The liver is pulled free, still pulsing slightly, and passed to the elder with the scarred face. The heart is sliced in two, the tongue is dropped into a wooden bowl like it's just another potato. Everyone gets something. No waste here, not a scrud. Even the intestines are cleaned out and set aside, probably for future use as cord or storage bladders. You're handed another piece. This one cooked, or at least seared quickly over the fire's edge. It's chewy, with a strange richness that clings to your teeth. You eat it slowly, eyes watering from the smoke, fingers sticky. A dog-sized child plops down next to you and gnaws on a joint bone, humming softly. It's not exactly what you'd imagined prehistoric dining to be, but it's oddly intimate, communal. There's no silverware, well, of course, no plates, no napkins, just rocks and hands and meat. People eat with their fingers, tearing and licking and passing things around. A hunk of roasted fat is shoved into your lap. You pick at it and chew thoughtfully while across from you 2 women laugh at something that must be very funny, judging by the tears in their eyes. It's not you, probably. You lean back for a moment, exhaling slowly, trying to process the sheer realness of all of it. This isn't just a bad camping trip. This is a world where everything you thought you knew about hygiene, etiquette, and table manners has just exploded into 1,000 flint shards. There are no forks here. There's no concept of 3 meals a day or balanced nutrition. There's just food when it's available, and the celebration of being fed. Here's your historical note for this meal. Bone marrow was a critical part of the Paleolithic diet. Our ancestors prized it, not just for its high fat and calorie content, but because it could be stored inside bones and consumed later, long after meat had spoiled. That means the bone you just sucked on might have been a sort of prehistoric energy bar. Handy, gross, necessary. Quirky detail, some archaeologists believe early humans would break bones specifically on an anvil rock to extract the marrow and then pile up the broken bits in neat little heaps. Whole sites have been discovered with carefully arranged piles of split bones, which either means they were really organised or had early onset OCD. As the meal winds down, scraps are collected, bones tossed into a corner, and people begin licking their hands clean. You're handed a stiff piece of hide to wipe your face with, which doesn't help much. It just smears the grease in a new direction. You now smell like a barbecue that got into a fight with a petting zoo. Eventually people begin to move again. The cave becomes a series of little tasks. Someone gathers stones for sharpening tools. Others begin scraping the elk's hide, turning it into usable leather. A group of kids chase each other around the cave's perimeter, yipping and slapping the walls as they play a game with no apparent rules. You're not given orders, but you sense an expectation hanging in the air. Do something useful, or at least pretend convincingly. So you kneel beside one of the women cleaning a rib bone and gesture, "Can I help?" She looks sceptical. You pick up a dull-edged tool and begin scraping at the hide with the finesse of a sloth. She grunts, moves your hands, shows you again, slower. Pressure at the right angle. You try again. This time you manage to peel a long strip free, revealing the sinew beneath. It's oddly satisfying, like skinning a giant fruit. Now for your scholarly debate. There's some evidence, though not conclusive, that groups during this time shared meals more equally than many later agricultural societies. Were they proto-socialists? Not quite, but the hunting and sharing of meat often fell under communal rules. If you killed it, you didn't hoard it. You shared it, and in return, the group took care of you when you needed it. This could be survival economics or early morality. It's unclear, but you're starting to appreciate the arrangement. Later, you're invited, or maybe just expected, to join in boiling what's left of the elk in a rough-hewn stone pit outside the cave. It's filled with water that's being heated with fire-warmed rocks dropped in one after another. A hissing, bubbling, primitive stew begins to form. Bone, tendon, scraps, roots, even a few weird mushrooms that you definitely hope someone else tested first. They hand you a bowl made from a carved gourd. You slurp. It's awful. Then strangely delicious. Then awful again. The flavours are prehistoric and confusing, but you drink it all. By midday you're full. Not satisfied exactly, but warm and drowsy. The fire burns low again. People recline against stone and hide in each other, limbs tangled and breathing slow. You realise this is their version of after brunch. Everyone dozing off or working snugly, riding the contentment of meat and warmth. You close your eyes for a moment, just to rest. The taste of marrow still clings to the back of your throat. You're sticky, you're exhausted, and for the first time since you woke up here, you're not entirely sure you want to leave. Not today, anyway. You wake to the soft pressure of something tapping your forehead. Not a hand. A finger? No. It's a stick. You blink and look up into the round, unblinking eyes of a small boy, maybe 6 years old, holding what looks like a thin reed or bone rod. He pokes your forehead again, just to make sure you're still alive. When your eyes meet his, he grins, wide, toothy and utterly without a guilt, and scampers off toward a cluster of other kids near the cave wall. They're laughing now, not meanly, just like they've decided you're the best new toy in camp. You sit up slowly. Your body creaks in protest, every joint a chorus of complaints. The warmth from the stew and the fire has faded, leaving your skin chilled and tight, your limbs sluggish. Outside, the sky is shifting into a dull gold, the long shadows of evening settling over the plains. Another day almost gone, you're somehow still here. Across the cave, a man is painting. You hadn't noticed him before. He's crouched low near a smooth section of wall, tracing lines with a stick dipped in ochre. He works quickly, with deliberate movements, swaying slightly as he draws. You shuffle closer, curiosity overcoming stiffness. The kids don't follow this time. Even they seem to know this part isn't for games. You're not the only observer. A few other tribe members are watching too, quiet and attentive. The artist, youngish, with braided hair and a smudge of black pigment across his nose, doesn't acknowledge anyone. His hand moves from curve to curve, layering strokes into the outline of a bison. It's nearly life-sized, or at least as big as the stone will allow. The animal's head is bowed, its body mid-stride as if caught in the very moment of movement. He dips into another pigment, black this time, and begins filling in the shaggy head. The eyes are two dark points, not realistic, but somehow expressive. You feel it looking back, watching. Then something even stranger happens. He adds small human shapes behind the bison. Hunters, maybe. They're stick-like but clear, holding spears, some crouching. One figure appears to be mid-throw, another might be dancing. It's hard to tell, but the meaning is there. Effort, pursuit, maybe ritual. You want to say something. Maybe that's incredible, or did you study art at a Paleolithic community college? But of course the language gap remains a wall. Still you step closer and point, then give a small reverent nod. The artist glances at you briefly, no smile, but not unfriendly, just acknowledgement. And that's when it really hits you. They're not just surviving, they're telling stories, preserving them, maybe even transforming them. You thought these people lived minute to minute, day to day, but this is something else. This is memory. This is communication that will last longer than any word. Historical fact time. The Chauvet Cave in France contains paintings estimated to be over 30,000 years old, making them among the oldest known artworks in the world. They depict animals with remarkable detail, rhinos, lions, horses, and show a sophisticated understanding of movement, shading and composition. It's not just doodling, it's art. Now for a fringe theory. Some anthropologists believe that these paintings weren't just art, they were used in rituals, maybe as a kind of magic. Paint the animal and you catch the animal. Others believe the cave itself was a sacred space, and the act of painting was deeply spiritual, tied to trance states, drumming, and early forms of shamanism. There's no consensus, only guesses, but the vibe here definitely supports the sacred paintbrush theory. You lean back against the wall and watch as the artist adds finishing touches. thin lines of red pigment to the bison's chest and a dusting of white powder around the hooves. The figure glows slightly in the fading light as if it's been alive this whole time and is just now choosing to reveal itself. A woman sits down next to you. She's older, with lines around her eyes and a necklace of tiny bones that clatter softly when she moves. She doesn't speak, but she hums under her breath, something low and melodic. You glance at her and she offers you a flat piece of bark with berries on it. They're tart, almost sour, but they help clear the meat taste from your mouth. You hum your thanks. The two of you sit there for a while, watching the painting take shape, the shadows deepening around it like curtains falling on a stage. The fire crackles behind you. A few of the kids are curled up already, twitching in sleep. Someone's muttering a lullaby in a language you'll never understand, and honestly, it doesn't matter. The tone carries everything. Safety, comfort, something like peace. You start to understand why these people are the way they are. Quiet, watchful, close-knit. Out here, you don't waste words, you don't waste time on things that don't matter. And you definitely don't waste a bison, even in symbolic form. Eventually, the painter steps back and surveys his work. He looks tired, his hand stained to the wrist. One of the elders walks over and murmurs something to him. The rest of the group disperses quietly. The day is closing like a well-used book. Now for the debate. Was language already fully developed in this period, or was it still evolving? Scholars can't quite agree. Some argue that Homo sapiens at this stage already used complex language, full syntax, abstract concepts, even storytelling. Others believe it was more rudimentary, based heavily on context, gestures, and tone. From what you've seen today, it might not matter, meaning travels in many forms. Later, when the fire has died down and the cave is cloaked in dim orange flickers, you lie down again near your borrowed patch of hide. The painting is still visible in the shadows, glowing faintly in the low light. Your thumb itches, maybe from the cut, maybe from the charcoal you handled yesterday, and your whole body hums with fatigue. You close your eyes, letting the soft sounds of the cave wash over you. Breathing, shifting, the occasional spark from the coals. Someone whispers nearby, a lull of gentle tones, maybe telling a story to a child, or singing, or praying. And for the first time since waking up in this cave, you don't feel like a visitor. You feel like part of something ancient, something that doesn't need translation or approval. You belong, at least for now. Sleep pulls you under, and this time you don't fight it. You wake to the glorious sensation of something biting your leg. Not hard, not bleeding, but persistent. Sharp, indeed. It's like being nibbled by a dozen tiny mouths with very bad intentions. You sit up fast, slapping at your calf, and manage to dislodge a few of the culprits. Small, fast-moving things that disappear into the folds of the hide you were sleeping on. You don't get a good look at them, but you have a strong suspicion. Lice, or fleas, or mites, or, all of them in a joint partnership. Welcome to Stone Age fashion. The moment you fully come to, you notice something else. You stink. Not just I slept in my clothes stink. This is a full-body marinade of smoke, sweat, blood, and old fur. The kind of scent that peels paint and probably attracts predators. You glance down at your outfit, which is technically an upgrade from yesterday's half-tunic, half-sack ensemble. Someone draped you in what looks like a hide robe during the night. It's warm, scratchy, and deeply fragrant in the way that only unwashed animal skin can be. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a shallow puddle near the cave wall, just enough reflection to be horrified. Your hair's matted with dirt and sleep grease. Your face is streaked with soot, and something that might be berry juice or old blood is dried across your cheek. You look like you lost a fight with a barbecue pit. And your new outfit. It fits like it was stitched by someone blindfolded in the dark using bone needles and pure spite. You pull the robe tighter anyway, grateful for the warmth. Then one of the women, a familiar one now with braids and that bone necklace, approaches and gestures for you to follow her outside. You obey without question, because honestly, you're desperate for air. Clean, sharp, pine-scented air. Anything that isn't soaked in cave funk. The morning is bright but cloudy, the sky a flat grey stretched thin over the distant hills. You blink into the light as your guide leads you down a narrow path along the rocky slope beside the cave. A few others are following too, mostly women and children. They are carrying bundles, furs, reeds, woven baskets, balancing them on their backs with rough slings that dig into their shoulders. You're not sure what's happening until you crest a small hill and see it. A primitive laundry day. A stream winds through the grass below, not deep, but moving quick and cold. Flat stones line one edge, and the group begins setting down their loads with quiet efficiency. Your guide hands you a tunic, not yours, but clearly meant for you. It's softer than what you've been wearing, less stiff and doesn't reek as much. Then she gestures, "Strip." You hesitate. She raises an eyebrow, shrugs, and starts undressing herself right there by the stream. Everyone else follows suit. In 30 seconds, you're the only one still layered in filth and shame. So you strip, slowly, carefully. You keep your back to the group and try to act like none of this is wildly uncomfortable. No one stares. They're too busy scrubbing hides, pounding them against rocks, dipping them in the water, rubbing them with coarse handfuls of herbs or sand. It's not about modesty here, it's about necessity. You wade into the water, and it's every bit as cold as you feared. Your breath vanishes from your lungs. It stabs into your skin like needles. You suck air through your teeth and step forward anyway, crouching until the water reaches your chest. Around you, people chatter softly, splashing, scrubbing, focused on the task. You mimic their movements, rubbing your arms with gritty leaves, dunking your head, scratching at your scalp. Historical fact. While Stone Age humans didn't bathe in the modern sense, they did practice forms of personal hygiene. Rivers and streams were used to wash, especially in warmer months. They also used ash, sand, and certain aromatic plants to reduce odour and discourage pests. Lice, though, basically unavoidable. If you lived in close quarters, wore fur, and didn't boil your bedding every week, you had lice. Congratulations, you are now authentically infested. You emerge from the water red-skinned and gasping, but cleaner. Sort of. At least you no longer feel like you're marinating in your own funk. The woman with the bone necklace hands you the new tunic and something else. A belt of braided fibres, knotted with bits of stone and wood. It's both decorative and functional, like a proto-accessory. You sling it on and feel marginally more human. Back near the cave, you hang your old hide over a tree branch to dry, or possibly to burn later in a small blessed ceremony. Others are doing the same. The group returns slowly, clean and quiet, steam rising off their damp bodies as they walk. It's the closest you've seen to relaxation in this world. A brief pause in survival mode. Quirky detail time. Prehistoric clothing wasn't just for warmth. Some of it had meaning, status, role, maybe even beliefs. Certain patterns cut into leather, or certain arrangements of beads and teeth, may have been early versions of identity, like a Stone Age LinkedIn profile. Today, your new belt probably tells people something about you. Mostly that you're weird outsider with decent effort and poor throwing arm. As the day unfolds, you're put to work again, this time in the hide-curing corner. You scrape flesh from drying elk skin using a stone scraper shaped like a scallop shell. It's gross, it's messy, it's weirdly meditative. The rhythm of scraping becomes hypnotic, and you find yourself falling into the pace of the group. No one says much. Occasionally someone mutters or laughs softly, but mostly it's just the work, the endless slow making of things. Here's where we dive into a scholarly grey zone. How much individuality existed in a Paleolithic tribe? Did people have distinct personalities, hobbies, quirks, or were roles so rigid that identity blurred into task? It's hard to say, but as you glance around at your new cave mates, you start to see hints. The quiet girl who always watches the sky, the older man who hums while working, the kid who pokes you every morning with a stick. These people may not have TikTok dances or astrology apps, but they're human. Fully, quietly, weirdly human. As evening returns and the furs are laid out again near the fire, you find yourself feeling almost proud of your new tunic. It fits a little better, it smells slightly better, and no one has picked a louse out of your hair in the last 3 hours, which feels like progress. You settle in among the others, fire crackling softly. The skin you worked on today is now drying beside the wall. Tomorrow it might become someone's shoes. Maybe even yours, if you're lucky and your feet stop looking like you've been walking across gravel with a death wish. You lean back, warm and tired. You're cleaner now. Still bitten, still clueless, but cleaner. And in the flicker of firelight wrapped in smoke and new furs, you feel a tiny spark of something else. Belonging. By now, you've realised something crucial about Stone Age life. Everything takes forever. There's no such thing as a quick errand or 5-minute job. Even the simplest task, say cutting a stick into a point, can devour an hour of your life and a decent chunk of your sanity. and this morning you're being introduced to one of the great, painfully slow arts of the Paleolithic, making tools, specifically flintnapping. The man leading the charge is one you've come to know as Scarjaw. He doesn't talk much, but his grunts are expressive, and his face has that permanently sceptical expression that makes you feel like you're constantly on the verge of failing a test. Today he motions you over to a flat area just outside the cave's mouth where a scattering of rocks lies in organised chaos. Chipped shards glitter like broken teeth in the morning light. He hands you a roundish stone about the size of a grapefruit and a long flat piece of bone. Then he demonstrates, stone in one hand, bone in the other, a sharp downward strike on a larger flint rock. The result? A satisfying crack as a sharp flake snaps cleanly away. He inspects the flake, grunts approval and sets it aside. Then he looks at you. Your turn. You take the tools, positioning them as he did, and swing downward. Your flint bounces uselessly off the rock with a dull thud. He sighs, reaches over, and adjusts your grip. You try again. This time the rock chips, barely. The piece that comes off is more dust than blade. Scarjaw doesn't say anything, but his mouth twitches in a way that says, "You're not a total disappointment. Yet." And so begins your morning, hunched over rocks, getting intimately familiar with the anatomy of flint and the sound it makes when you hit it wrong, which is often. Your hands quickly gather tiny cuts, nothing major, just the constant betrayal of sharp edges and calluses that haven't formed yet. After a while your fingers are throbbing, your shoulders ache, and your ego's hanging by a thread. But eventually, something clicks. One strike lands just right. The flake pops cleanly away, razor thin and wickedly sharp. Scarjaw inspects it, grunts once, short and approving, and tosses it into a growing pile. You almost cry, not from pride, just relief. Here's your history nugget. Flintnapping isn't just about smashing rocks. It's an art. Early humans developed highly specialised techniques to produce different kinds of tools: scrapers, blades, arrowheads. Some of the techniques, like the Levallois method, show a level of planning and precision that still baffles archaeologists. These weren't random rock tossers, these were engineers of stone. The weird fact: flint tools were sometimes sharpened to a finer edge than modern surgical steel. That's right, you're holding technology that in some ways outperformed modern scalpels. And here you are, bleeding from 5 fingers because you can't stop dropping the bone striker. As the morning drags into afternoon, more tribe members join the napping circle. It's quiet, focused to your work. People sit cross-legged or on folded hides, passing stones, nodding occasionally. No one speaks unless it's necessary. You start to recognise the rhythm, the tap-tap crack that marks success. You even manage to produce 2 more flakes that Scarjaw doesn't throw back into the pile with disdain. He then hands you a strip of leather and a shaft of wood, maybe from a birch tree. The next lesson begins, hafting. You're now attaching your shiny new blade to a handle, securing it with twine made from twisted sinew and sealing it with sticky tree resin. It's clumsy, sticky work. You ruin the first one entirely, but by the second attempt, your knife looks passable, ugly but solid. Then Scarjaw gives you the ultimate test. He hands you a piece of dried hide and makes a slicing motion. Go ahead, try it. You press your blade against the hide and pull. It bites in clean and smooth. Like butter, but tougher. Like victory, but with a slight smell of elk pea. The tribe begins to notice. You're no longer just the weird outsider who showed up barefoot and confused. You're becoming functional. Not exactly respected yet, but at least tolerated. Maybe even tolerated with interest. A few of the kids gather around to watch you work. One brings you a rock. Too soft, but you smile anyway. Another mimics your swing with a stick. You're inspiring a generation. A deeply filthy, slightly lice-ridden generation. Then comes the debate. How did Stone Age tool knowledge get passed down? Was it learned by trial and error, or through demonstration, or even something approaching structured teaching? Some researchers argue there was real instruction, elders guiding younger members step by step. Others believe it was more observational, with kids learning just by watching. Today you're getting a mix of both. Scarjaw never tells you what to do, but he corrects you with looks, gestures, and the occasional theatrical sigh. By late afternoon, your hands are raw, your back is screaming, and your brain feels like it's been hammered with a rock. Fitting. but your blade sits finished in your lap, tied, sealed, sharpened. It's not pretty, but it's real. A tool, a weapon, a badge of not totally useless. You tuck it into your belt as the sky darkens, your body coated in dust and resin. A breeze carries the smell of cooking meat from the cave, and your stomach growls like a saber-toothed cat. You follow the others back to camp, proud of your blade, and very aware that you still haven't used it for anything practical, like, say, cutting food or defending yourself from a wild boar. But that can wait. Dinner is stew again, this time thicker, meatier, and less awful. Maybe your standards are just lowering. You sit close to the fire, cross-legged like the others, blade resting beside you. No one comments on it, but several people glance at it. One nods, another passes you a bowl first. Small signs, but they speak loudly in this world. That night you place your knife next to your makeshift pillow, like a child clinging to a new toy. You earned this. You made this. You bled for this. And in a world where everything wants to kill you, having a sharp edge might just be your best chance at not becoming tomorrow's stew. The fire dims. The snoring starts. You pull your robe tighter and drift off, one hand resting on your blade. You're not a warrior. Not yet. But you're not helpless anymore either. And in the Stone Age, that's a good start. By the time your eyes creak open the next morning, your body has officially joined the protest. Everything hurts. Everything. Your arms are sore from flintnapping. Your legs ache from squatting over rocks all day, and your fingers are swollen little sausages with the added bonus of tiny cuts that sting at the most inconvenient moments, like now, as you reach up to rub your crusty eyes and immediately jab yourself in the face. Great start. But there's no sleeping in here. Not unless you want to miss out on food, or worse, get left behind when the rest of the group disappears into the forest to do something crucial like gathering berries or wrestling a wild boar. You sit up slowly, brushing straw from your hair, and hear the first soft stirrings of the day. The fire being coaxed back to life, someone clearing their throat, the muffled sound of a child laughing at something vaguely inappropriate. Outside, the sky is cloudy and thick with fog, the air damp and heavy. It clings to your skin and seeps into your robe like a warning. Today's going to be gross. Sure enough, just after you gnaw your way through a piece of dried root that might technically count as breakfast, one of the hunters motions for you to follow him out. No words, just a look, a flick of the head, and a spear shoved in your direction. Today's agenda? Foraging again. But not just nuts and roots this time. Today you're on the hunt for protein the low effort way, small game, rabbits, birds, possibly something with teeth if you're unlucky. You're not sure if this is a promotion or a punishment, but you take the spear anyway and fall in line. The group is smaller today, just 4 of you. Scarjaw is back, of course, along with the quiet woman with the sharp eyes and the teenage boy who's built like a gazelle and seems incapable of walking at a normal pace. You keep up as best you can, stumbling occasionally on loose stones and silently praying you don't get stabbed in the thigh with your own spear when you inevitably fall. The terrain changes quickly. Grass gives way to thickets, then patches of forest, the trees low and twisted. The air here smells of wet earth and moss, and beneath your feet the ground squishes in that unsettling way that says you're going to sink just a little. You pass animal tracks, hoof prints, claw marks, something that looks suspiciously like a bear's passing. Scarjaw squats to inspect a fresh print, then gestures to spread out. You stick close to the sharp-eyed woman. She doesn't seem thrilled by your presence, but she hasn't sent you back to the cave either. Baby steps. She moves through the undergrowth like a shadow, barely making a sound. You try to do the same, and the first time you step on a twig and snap it, her head swivels toward you so fast you feel your soul leave your body. Eventually, you come across something promising. A burrow. She crouches beside it, brushing aside leaves and peering in. Rabbit, probably, or something similar. She makes a low whistle, and the others gather. A quick conference in grunts and gestures follows, and suddenly you're part of an ambush plan. You'll circle wide, flush the creature out, and someone else will spear it. You're the noise, the bait. Not ideal. But you go. You creep around the undergrowth, heart pounding, stepping lightly and watching the hole carefully. And then, a blur of fur darts from the burrow. You lunge without thinking, spear in both hands, and completely miss. The rabbit bolts. Scarjaw throws. His spear lands true. You flop down in the grass, panting, spear still wobbling in your hands. The team gathers around the kill, which is already limp and bleeding slightly from its side. It's small, maybe 2 meals at best, but there is satisfaction in it. You helped. Kind of. Okay, you scared it. But in Stone Age terms, that's a valuable contribution. Here's your fact of the day. Hunting small game was often more reliable than chasing megafauna. It required less effort, less danger, and provided just enough food to keep a small group going. Many Paleolithic people balanced big hunts with regular trapping and foraging, creating a kind of prehistoric meal plan based on opportunity and desperation. Quirky bonus, some tribes use primitive traps made from bent branches, vines, or even simple deadfalls to catch small animals. You haven't seen anything like that yet, but the way Sharp Eyes checks tree roots makes you think she knows where a few are hidden. Once the rabbit is gutted and strung up, you avert your eyes during the messier bits. The group continues on, moving with less urgency now. There's more looking, less chasing. You find a bush covered in dark berries. Sharp Eyes gestures to eat only the oval ones, not the round ones. You follow her lead, chewing carefully, resisting the urge to ask if ancient people got food poisoning. Answer: constantly. They just didn't have Yelp reviews to complain about it. Later, as you kneel by a shallow pool to refill a crude gourd cup with water, the teenage boy surprises you by miming something. He grins and makes a series of gestures that you decipher as, "You fell. Your face was funny." You stick out your tongue at him, and he laughs. This is how communication works now. Hand signs, looks, sound effects. And maybe that's all language ever really was, just a way to say, "I see you, you're part of this." Now here's your academic debate for the day. Was nonverbal communication more dominant in early human societies than we've assumed? Some researchers think gestures carried as much weight as vocalizations, especially before formal language solidified. You're living the theory. Every expression, every tilt of the head or lift of the brow, those are your words now. As the day winds down and the fog finally starts to lift, your little hunting party makes its way back to the cave. The shadows stretch long across the hills, and the smell of wood smoke carries on the wind. Your legs are killing you, your shoulders are one bad move from mutiny, and your stomach is already bargaining for stew. But in your belt you carry your stone blade. And strung across your shoulder, a small rabbit. It's not much, but it's something. A win. Back in the cave, the group greets you with glances and nods, no cheers, no parades, but someone tosses you a cooked root, and Scarjaw actually hands you a piece of meat instead of just dropping it near your feet. That's progress. You sit down by the fire and exhale, letting the warmth wash over you. Your clothes are still damp, your feet are sore, and you're probably going to dream about rabbits darting into holes forever now. But today you hunted. Not well, not gracefully, but you hunted. And in this world, that's enough to earn another day. You never actually meant to be near a mammoth. That was never part of the plan. Not that you've had a plan since waking up half naked in a smoke-filled cave with lice and no language skills. But if someone had asked, "Hey, do you want to run up to a building-sized, angry, hairy tank with tusks?" you absolutely would have said no, politely, maybe screamed a little. But the Stone Age has a way of changing your standards. It begins with a strange hum of activity. You notice it first thing in the morning. The usual slow crawl into consciousness, scratching, coughing, awkwardly pretending not to notice you're stuck between two snoring people, is replaced by quiet, focused movement. People are up early, packing things, smearing charcoal onto their cheeks, bundling spears and slings. It's not the usual forage and hope vibe. This is different, sharper, intentional. Scarjaw sees you watching and gestures with a quick downward motion. Follow. You grab your robe, your belt, your not at all straight stone blade and stumble outside. The air is cold and expectant, the sky blank with fog, like even the atmosphere knows something big is coming. In the clearing below, the hunting party is already assembling, taller than usual, more people than you've ever seen together at once. And that's when you hear the first low trumpet. It's distant, faint but unmistakable, like a horn blast muffled by distance and time, a sound you've only ever heard through museum exhibits and CGI documentaries. You freeze. Then another call follows, closer this time, louder, vibrating the ground just enough that your feet suddenly feel a bit less loyal to the idea of standing. They're here. Mammoths. You can't see them yet, but your companions can. Their eyes are scanning the horizon, locking in on something hidden by the hills. Weapons are checked, retied, slung over shoulders. One woman smears what looks like red ochre over her forearms, pressing handprints against her chest. Another ties a braid of grass into her belt. It's a ritual, you realise. Maybe for luck, maybe for courage. You want to run, but also you don't. There's a magnetism to this moment, like standing at the edge of a cliff and wanting to jump just to see what it feels like. Your role, it turns out, is not to throw spears at the giant hairy death beast. Thank every single prehistoric deity. Instead, you're given a task. Carry. There's a net made of twisted baber slung between two long poles, and you and the teenage gazelle boy are given one end. Your job is to stay behind the main group, wait until the chaos starts, and then help drag whatever's left, meat, bones, or possibly an injured hunter, back to the cave. The strategy is surprisingly clever. A small group will drive the mammoths toward a natural ravine, a slope that narrows into a stone funnel. The animals, panicked and confused, will be easier to target in tight quarters. Or that's the idea. In reality, it's more like, let's poke the largest thing alive and hope it runs in the right direction. Historical context time, mammoths weren't just walking meat lockers, they were deeply important to Upper Paleolithic cultures. A single kill could feed dozens, provide bones for tools, tusks for carving, hides for tents. Some sites show evidence of mammoth bone dwellings, arranged like skeletal cathedrals. These animals were wealth, shelter, and survival all rolled into one shaggy, slow-moving miracle. And the fringe fact? Some tribes may have had entire social systems built around mammoth migrations, like prehistoric truck stops following the seasonal flow of fur and ivory. Scholars debate whether they actively hunted mammoths often or scavenged from natural deaths. But either way, these creatures weren't just dinner. They were everything. You're still chewing on that idea when you finally see them crest the ridge. First, just shapes in the mist, then movement, then details. They're massive, towering, covered in long, tangled fur that sways with every step. Their tusks are impossibly large, like wings made of bone. And their eyes, ancient, calm, almost sad, as if they've already lived too long and seen too much. There are 3 of them, moving slowly, flanked by smaller shadows that might be juveniles. The hunters freeze. Scarjaw raises one hand. The plan begins. At first, it's just noise, yelling, whistling, shaking bundles of dried grass set alight with smouldering embers. The mammoths react instantly, jerking, shifting, trumpeting. They turn toward the slope exactly as hoped. Spears fly, one hits, another glances off thick highs. The mammoths move faster, and now you're running awkwardly, dragging your end of the net behind you as the shouting intensifies. Then chaos. One mammoth turns abruptly, panicked. It charges sideways instead of forward. A hunter dives out of the way just in time. Another slips, loses their grip on a spear. You hear a scream, short, sharp, someone's down. You don't think, you just move. You drop the net, dash toward the figure and grab under the arms. It's Gazelle Boy. His ankle is twisted at a wrong angle, but he's conscious, biting down on something to stay quiet. You haul him upright, lean him against a rock. Scarjaw appears a second later and throws a bloody spear into your hands. You blink, stunned. He's covered in dark smears. Blood, ash, maybe both. And his eyes are wild with something between rage and triumph. Behind him, the largest mammoth stumbles, collapsing slowly like a falling tree. It hits the earth with a sound you feel in your bones. The tribe erupts, shouts of joy, clapping, whooping. The air is thick with adrenaline, smoke, and the heavy, salty scent of blood and wet fur. You help hoist Gazelle Boy into the net you were supposed to carry meat with. Funny how things change. As you limp back toward camp, exhausted and shaking, the body of the mammoth is already being carved. People swarm it like bees to a hive, slicing, separating, salvaging. Every piece will be used, nothing wasted, not even the intestines. When you reach the cave, others come running, women, children, elders. They rush to help, bringing water, herbs, fire-heated stones. You slump against a rock and try not to vomit. So here's the debate for the night. Were big game hunts like this common, or rare events of mythic importance? Archaeologists argue both sides. Some evidence points to frequent mammoth kills, others suggest they were once-in-a-lifetime achievements, celebrated and remembered for generations. Based on how this group is reacting, you're guessing the latter. This isn't just dinner. This is legacy. Later, after the wounds are bound and the hide stretched, and the fire built twice as high, the story begins. Scarjaw pantomimes the hunt, thrusting his arms to mimic spears, stomping around with exaggerated tusks. Everyone laughs. Even Gazelle Boy manages a grin from his corner, foot wrapped in strips of bark and hide. Someone tosses you a piece of meat. Mammoth meat. Fresh, charred, smelling like history. You chew slowly, letting the taste sink in. It's heavy, gamey, smoky, a little like beef, a little like triumph. You look around at your cave mates, their faces lit by fire, their voices raised in rough song. You're tired, sorry, bruised, your fingers are sticky with blood, your hair smells like burning fur, and yet somehow this might be the best meal of your life. The cave has never felt darker. The fire is burning low, embers cracking in their slow, lazy way, casting long, flickering shadows that crawl across the walls like sleepy animals. Everyone's tucked into the furs tonight, exhausted, full, aching in ways that no amount of stretching will fix. The air is thick with smoke and the smell of mammoth fat, which, fun fact, does not wear off easily. Your robe still clings to it like a badge of honour, or a punishment. Hard to tell. You shift slightly under your hide blanket, trying to find a less rocky section of ground. There isn't one. Every inch is lumpy, hard, and probably hiding at least one insect colony. But you're too tired to care. Your legs are dead weight. Your arms feel like you dragged the mammoth home personally, and your mind, which spent the day pulsing with adrenaline, is finally beginning to slow. Sort of. You can't see much, but your other senses are wide awake. The air is cool and damp. It smells of moss, ash, and the greasy leftovers of dinner. The cave breathes around you, soft snores, a shift of limbs, someone mumbling incoherently in their sleep. A baby somewhere coughs once, then goes quiet again. It's peaceful in a rugged, grimy, vaguely unhygienic way. You glance toward the entrance. It's a narrow slit of blue-black, barely letting in the faintest trace of moonlight. The wind has died down, but you can hear something outside, maybe leaves rustling, or small animals moving through the underbrush. Your body wants to sleep, but your brain, ever the modern passenger in a prehistoric shell, is replaying everything. The hunt, the roar, the impact, the meat, the noise. And then comes the part you've been dreading all day, the shuffling over of someone who wants to talk, or more accurately, gesture. It's the elder, the one with the bone necklace and the braided hair that's somehow never dirty. She sits cross-legged beside you, holding a small carved object in her hands. She offers it without a word. It's a figure, maybe 3 inches tall, made of bone or antler. It's a woman. Broad hips, no face, heavy curves. You've seen images like this before, back in textbooks or museum displays. A fertility figure, maybe. A symbol of life or motherhood or something deeper. You hold it gently, not sure if you're supposed to give it back or keep it or offer your own awkward thank you dance. The elder taps her chest, then points at the carving, then at the cave wall where the bison painting glows faintly in the firelight. You think she's saying something like, "We belong to this," or "This belongs to us," or maybe just "Remember, it's hard to be sure." She hums something low and rhythmic, a sound more like a vibration than a melody. It rises and falls like breathing. You close your eyes, letting it carry you a little closer to sleep. But the cave has other plans, because just as you're slipping into that delicious liminal space between consciousness and dreams, a log shifts in the fire and collapses with a loud crack, sending a spray of sparks into the air. You jolt upright, so does the elder. A few others stir. The fire flickers brighter for a moment, then settles again. You sigh, rubbing your face, still gripping the little figure. The elder places a hand on your shoulder, warm, dry, grounding, then stands and moves away. You lie back down, tucking the figure under your furs. A gift, maybe, or alone. Either way, you feel strangely honoured. Here's your historical bite for the night. These kinds of carved figures, often referred to as Venus figurines, have been found across Europe, dating back as far as 30,000 years. They vary in size and detail, but often emphasise fertility-related features. No one knows exactly what they meant. Idol, totem, talisman. But they were important enough to carve, carry, and bury with the dead. And now, here's the quirky side fact. Some of these figurines show signs of wear on their bottoms, like they were carried around constantly. So basically, ancient pocket companions. Not far off from how some people today carry crystals, worry stones, or tiny rubber ducks for good luck. You're holding one now, and yeah, it kind of works. It's like a prehistoric emotional support object. The scholarly debate you'd be reading about if you weren't currently curled up in a smoky cave, Whether these objects were religious symbols, self-portraits, or even just early forms of storytelling, some believe they represented the ideal woman, though that says more about the carver than the carved. Others think they were used in rituals, passed between generations, or served as memory aids. A Paleolithic diary maybe, one with no words, just shape and meaning. The fire burns lower. The warmth fades, but the bodies around you provide enough heat to keep from freezing. You listen to the breaths rising and falling around the room. So many different cadences. A woman to your right exhales in gentle, measured sighs. A child nearby mutters something in their sleep, kicking lightly at a hide. A man coughs twice, harsh and dry, then goes quiet again. Sleep finally begins to stick. Your thoughts unravel, your muscles melt. The little figure is still clutched in your hand, smooth and cool, grounding you in this surreal, sacred, completely bizarre reality you've somehow been adopted into. Outside the world is Marrot. No mammoths, no threats, just stars, mist and wind. You let yourself drift, finally, into sleep. Not modern sleep with phone alarms and morning meetings, but deep, primal, utterly dreamless sleep. The kind that only comes when your body is so wrung out and your mind so saturated with survival that rest becomes not just desirable, but mandatory. In your last waking thought, you realise this might be the safest you've felt in days, maybe even since you arrived. The cave breathes, so do you, and everything goes still. The cave isn't exactly quiet when you wake, but it's the kind of soft activity that doesn't demand your attention. Shuffling footsteps, the muted clatter of flint on bone, the low hum of someone starting up their daily mumbling. You stretch slowly, your muscles half frozen, and your joints making noises that probably weren't part of the original human design. The little bone figurine is still tucked in the crook of your arm, warm now from being cradled all night. You're not sure what you believe about ancient spirituality or magic or spirit mothers carved in mammoth ivory, but the thing worked. You actually slept. Once you're up, you join the subtle migration toward the fire, where the usual suspects are already poking at the embers and coaxing them back into something useful. Breakfast is a muted affair. Dried meat, a hard root that someone thoughtfully smashed with a rock for easier chewing. You thank them with a look that hopefully translates as, "My jaw appreciates you." Scarjaw gives you a once-over, then nods slightly at your belt. You realise he's looking for your blade. You hold it up, still intact, still roughly knife-shaped, still an accomplishment. He grunts, approval or mild indifference, it's hard to tell, and goes back to chewing. Then something shifts in the energy of the cave. You feel it before you notice it. A hush, heads turning, people gathering not for food or chores, but something else. You follow their gazes and see him, the painter. He stands near the far wall, near the fire-blackened rock canvas where the bison and deer and stick-figure hunters dance across the surface. He's holding a shallow bowl filled with pigment, and he's already begun working on a new section, this one smaller, more compact. He isn't alone. 2 of the elders are with him, seated, watching. There's a kind of reverence in the air. This isn't decoration. This is a ritual. You inch closer, trying to stay out of the way while still observing. He's painting something different this time. Not animals, not movement. It's a spiral, small at first, then expanding outward in looping lines. Around it, he adds tiny dots, handprints, and strange symbols that look almost like faces, but aren't quite. Everyone is watching, quiet, still. The firelight dances on the pigment, making it seem to move. The woman with the bone necklace begins humming again. It's the same rhythm from the other night, slow and steady. Her voice is low but carries, and soon others join in. Not words, not even melody, but tone and vibration. It wraps around you like smoke. The painter pauses, dips his fingers in white pigment, and presses his hand to the rock, right in the centre of the spiral. Then he steps back. The elders nod. One of them takes a handful of ash and scatters it into the fire. And just like that, the moment ends. People begin to move again, like a spell is broken. The painter wipes his hands on a hide and sits back against the wall, sweat glistening on his brow. You finally exhale. Historical sidebar. Prehistoric cave art wasn't just visual storytelling. In many cases, it seems to have been part of a larger ritual experience. Certain sites, like Lascaux and Chauvet, have acoustic properties, echoes, sound amplification that suggest sound was just as important as the image. These weren't just paintings, they were performances. And now the quirky bit. Some researchers believe the handprints found in cave art weren't just signatures or decorations, they were identity markers, like, I was here, I saw this, I am part of this story. Even cooler? Many of the hands belong to women and children, not just adult males. The ancient art world, surprisingly inclusive. There's debate, of course. Are these symbols religious? Calendrical? Psychedelic doodles from a shamanic trance? No one agrees. But everyone senses the weight of them. You do too. Later, when most of the group disperses to their usual duties, hunting, tool-making, scraping hides, you linger by the wall. The new spiral glows faintly in the firelight, the pigment soaked deep into the rock. You reach out and touch the handprint gently. It's still damp, still warm. Someone taps your shoulder. It's the painter. He points at the wall, then at you, then hands you a bowl. Wait. No, absolutely not. You're just the time-lost tourist. A glorified background extra in this Paleolithic epic. But the bowl is in your hands now. The pigment is thick and cool, red like dried blood and rust mixed together. He guides your fingers into it, then gestures to a blank spot beside the spiral. You press your hand to the rock. It sticks a little, then peels away, leaving a smudged outline. He nods. You've just left a piece of yourself in a world that won't know your name, but might, just might, remember your shape. There's something oddly moving about it, not in a spiritual, I found myself in ochre kind of way, but in the deeply human realization that this is how memory worked before paper, before photos, before hard drives. Just pigment, intention, rock. You don't stay much longer. The ritual has ended and the cave has returned to its business of survival. But later, while sharpening your blade or helping rub fat into hides, you catch someone glancing at the new handprint. Not angrily, just noting it. Like a footnote, like, huh, the weird one with the messy hair might be one of us now. You fall asleep that night with pigment still clinging under your nails. You're wrapped in your robe, curled against the curve of the cave, and for once, you don't dream of the world you left behind. You dream of spirals, of painted walls, of hands reaching forward from the past, pressing into stone. Maybe this place is a story, and now you're part of it. The next morning begins the way most do in the Stone Age, with a backache, a chill in your spine, and the persistent feeling that your breath smells like you chewed on a dead animal in your sleep. You probably did. The warmth of the fire has faded into an embery sulk, and the sky outside is still too dark to be considered morning, but people are already moving around. You groan, roll over, and catch sight of something you didn't expect to see this early. Feathers, lots of feathers. There, near the back of the cave, lit only by the soft glow of the dying fire, sits someone new, or maybe not new, but definitely different. You've seen them around the cave before, but always at the edge of things, moving like smoke saying nothing. They wear furs like the others, but theirs are decorated, fringed with tiny bones and dyed pieces of hide layered with dried flowers and twisted cords. And those feathers, bright, long, pressed into their braids and stitched into their tunic. They clink softly when they move. No one else is paying much attention to them, but that only makes them more interesting. Because now they're doing something unusual. They're kneeling by a shallow stone bowl, mixing something inside. You can't see what it is, but it smells strange, earthy and sharp, like crushed leaves and ash and something slightly sweet. You sit up slowly, hoping not to draw attention, but they look over anyway. Their eyes are dark and too alert for this hour. They nod once, then beckon. You hesitate. Part of your brain says, nope, absolutely not, this is how horror movies start. But the other part, the part that's been gradually turning feral and curious, says, well, what else are you going to do? You walk over. They point to the ground. Sit. So you do. They reach into a pouch and pull out a handful of dried plant matter. Leaves, stems, maybe bark. It goes into the bowl, then a bit of water, a swirl. Then they dip 2 fingers in and press them to your forehead. Okay, it's not a blessing exactly. It's not aggressive. It's just intentional, like they're marking you for something. They make a humming sound low and unbroken and begin tracing lines on your arms with the paste. It's not warm or cold, it just smells like soil and memories. This, you realise, is the shaman, or at least a shaman. You've read about them in vague textbook terms: ritual specialists, spiritual mediators, early religious figures. But none of that captures the presence sitting before you now. This person doesn't just believe something, you can feel it. They carry it like a second skin. You glance around, expecting someone to interfere, or at least watch, but no one does. People continue about their morning. Someone breaks sticks for kindling, someone else stirs stew. This is normal, you gather. This is what the shaman does. Now, historical fact. There's strong evidence across many prehistoric cultures that certain individuals acted as spiritual guides. People who performed rituals, interpreted dreams, conducted healing ceremonies, and served as a link between the tribe and the unseen world. These weren't always old men with beards either. Many shamans were women, and sometimes gender roles were blurred altogether. It wasn't about who you were, it was about what you saw. The shaman takes a small stone and presses it to your chest. It's cold and smells like the paste. They look into your eyes for a long moment. No words, just that deep, quiet knowing. Then they whisper something, short and harsh, like the crack of a twig, and motion for you to leave. So you do. Outside, the air is heavy with mist. It settles in your robe and crawls into your hair. A few others are already gathering for the day's tasks. Scarjaw walks past, carrying a bundle of spears, and nods as he passes. You touch your forehead, still smeared with the shaman's paste. It tingles, not uncomfortably, more like a reminder, like being stamped with pending. You return to your chores. Nothing dramatic happens. You carry water from the stream, help cut mussel or meat, scrape another hide until your arms threaten rebellion. But everyone you pass glances at you a little longer than usual. No smiles, no warnings, just acknowledgement. Like they know something happened and they're waiting to see what it means. The quirky fact of the day: some cultures believed shamans could travel between worlds, dream space, spirit space, whatever name fits. They used herbs, fasting, rhythmic drumming and chanting to enter trances and bring back knowledge, healing or omens. No proof of exactly what went on, of course, just scattered artefacts, rattles, masks, bone flutes, and a whole lot of scholarly shrugging. And here's the debate. Were these figures purely religious? Or were they early psychologists managing to stray up dress and for fear through ritual? Were they doctors in disguise using herbs and touch when no one else could explain pain or fever? Or were they performers, using drama and flair to maintain influence? As the day fades into the soft gold of late afternoon, the shaman appears again. Not near you, just across the clearing, sitting on a rock, watching. You meet their gaze. They nod once, you nod back. It means something, but you're not sure what. That night the cave feels different. Not louder or quieter, just deeper, like the walls themselves have leaned in a little closer. The fire cracks, and you catch the scent of that paste again, faint in the air. You sleep with your hand curled around the small bone figure, and for the first time your dreams are not of cold or fear or the world you left behind. You dream of feathers and spirals, and voices that speak without sound. You hear them before you see them. A series of low, sharp calls echo through the valley like the sound of distant barking, or a bird that's way too confident in its lungs. You're just outside the cave, bent over a rock and trying to sharpen your knife, which, frankly, has seen better days, when the sound freezes everyone mid-motion. A girl drops the basket she was weaving. One of the elders stands, his eyes squinting toward the hills. Scarjaw stops mid-strike while flintnapping and slowly sets the stone down. Then the whole world goes quiet. You follow their gaze to the edge of the plain, just where the mist begins to thin. And there, emerging from the low fog like ghosts, is another group. At first, you can't tell if they're animals or people. Their outlines are odd. Bulky, broad-shouldered, moving with a loping gait that feels unnatural but deliberate. They're wearing furs like your group, but the shapes beneath look different. Heavier, maybe shorter. They move in a tight cluster, heads down, no chatter. Just presence. The tribe around you doesn't panic, but the tension is immediate. Spears are picked up, tools are quietly set aside. The women usher the children back into the cave. You follow, only half aware of your own feet because your brain has already started whispering a dangerous possibility. Neanderthals. You've heard about them, of course. Read the theories. Watch the documentaries that flip between they were peaceful cousins and they probably ate us. Homo neanderthalensis, stockier, shorter, big-brained survivors of harsh climates. You knew they once coexisted with early Homo sapiens, even interbred with them. But knowing that as trivia is one thing, seeing them walk toward your cave is something else entirely. Scarjaw steps forward and raises a hand, not threatening, just signalling. The other group pauses, one of them steps ahead. This one is bigger than anyone in your camp, wide, with arms like tree trunks and a face half lost in beard and shadows. You notice the heavy brow ridge immediately, the flattened nose, the sheer thickness of the man's body. He carries no weapon in hand, but you don't doubt he could uproot a tree if he felt like it. He grunts something, a low, rising noise that could be a question or a warning or both. Your group doesn't answer with words. Instead, Scarjaw mirrors the grunt, then holds up an open palm. A long pause follows. Then the Neanderthal man nods and turns, gesturing to the others behind him. Slowly, with obvious care, they begin to approach. There are 6 in total, 3 men, 2 women, and 1 child. Their clothing is rougher than your group's, but thick, functional. Their tools look similar, though heavier. Their faces, broad, powerful, strangely gentle, scan the area like travellers checking into a campsite, deciding if they're welcome. Your tribe begins moving again, not relaxed, but resigned. The Neanderthal group isn't here for conquest. They're visitors. Temporary neighbours, maybe. Scarjaw offers them space near the fire. One of your group hands them a bowl of something steaming and earthy. No one smiles, but no one draws a blade either. Historical moment. This scene, some version of it, almost certainly happened. We know that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens overlapped for thousands of years across Europe and Asia. They weren't just passing ships in the evolutionary night. They lived near each other. Possibly learned from each other. Definitely mated. That part's in your DNA, literally. Fringe theory time. Some researchers believe Neanderthals were actually more sophisticated than we've given them credit for. They had symbolic objects, maybe even rudimentary language. Some buried their dead with grave goods. Others possibly used pigments for body paint. The idea that they were brute cavemen with clubs. More pop culture than reality. But the scholarly debate still rages. Were these interactions peaceful exchanges? Awkward coexistence? Sporadic violence with a dash of romance? No one really knows. There's no recorded argument over territory, no paleopolice reports, just tools, bones, and overlapping footprints. Tonight, you're sitting on the edge of a moment like that. You watch from your usual place near the wall, trying not to stare too hard. But honestly, how can you not? The Neanderthal child is especially captivating. He moves differently than the others. Hunched but alert. Big dark eyes constantly scanning. He doesn't speak, not that you can tell, but he watches everything. You, the fire, the cave paintings. At one point he wanders over and sits near you. Not next to you, just close enough to test your boundaries. You glance his way, he glances back. You raise your eyebrows. He sniffs, the universal sign of total indifference. And then he pulls something from his little pouch and holds it out. It's a stone, smooth, shiny, possibly water-polished. Not useful, just pretty. You take it carefully. He grunts and taps his chest. You mimic the gesture, then tap your own. He nods. A tiny, almost imperceptible acknowledgement. Then he shuffles away. You look down at the stone in your hand. It's warm from his pocket. Useless. But still, he gave it to you. No transaction, just a gesture. As the Neanderthals settle in for the night, your tribe gives them space but stays vigilant. One elder whispers something that makes another shake her head. The fire is kept bigger than usual. Scarjaw doesn't sleep. He sits upright, knife in hand, watching the visitors. You try to sleep, but your brain won't stop. You're lying a few feet away from another branch of humanity. Another version of us, and they're not monsters. Not gods, just people. Different, sure, but people. You roll over, curling beneath your robe, still clutching the smooth stone in your palm. It's comforting, like a relic from a stranger who wasn't quite so strange after all. And in the quiet of the cave, as both groups breathe in the dark, you feel something profound settle over the space. Maybe it's not about who came first, or who was smarter, or who eventually survived. Maybe for one night, it's about the firelight on different faces, the shared stew, the exchange of useless stones. Maybe the story has room for all of you. You wake up sweating. Not the good kind either. It's the clammy, fever dream kind. where your robe sticks to your skin like wet bark and your eyelids feel like they've been sandpapered in your sleep. Your head throbs with every heartbeat, and your stomach is quietly threatening to mutiny. You blink, roll over, and immediately regret it. The spinning starts before you even sit up. You brace yourself against the cave wall, trying to pretend this is just morning fog. It's not. Something's wrong. Across the cave, the Neanderthals are already gone. Sometime during the night, they packed up and slipped out like mist over the hills. No footprints, no farewell, just that faint scent of animal oil and ash left behind where they slept. Your tribe seems unbothered, or maybe just used to strange company coming and going. But no one notices you sweating through your robe, your hands shaking slightly as you fumble with the hide-wrapped gourd someone left by your head. You sip. Water. Warm. Tastes like smoke and moss. Not helping. Someone walks past and pauses, a woman from your group with sharp eyes and sharper cheekbones. She tilts her head at you, frowns, then squats beside you and places a hand on your forehead. Her face tightens. Yep, even in the Stone Age they know fever when they see it. She gestures sharply, and within minutes the shaman is back, feathers and all. This time they move briskly, no mystery, no ritual preamble. They crouch beside you and look at you like you're a problem to solve. You try to say something, I'm fine, maybe, or please don't paint me again. But what comes out is more of a whimper. Your skin is crawling. Your insides feel like they've been stirred with a hot stick. You lie back down and let the shaman do whatever they're about to do. They begin with a pouch, one of many hanging from their woven belt. They open it and pull out something that looks like crushed leaves mixed with dirt. They rub it between their fingers, sniff it, nod, and then drop a handful into a bowl of water. Then they crush more leaves, different ones this time, with a sharp smell that makes your eyes sting, and add that too. The whole thing smells like mouldy pine and regret. You get a mouthful of it a minute later. It's awful, bitter, slimy, and vaguely spicy in the way that says, this will either cure you or finish the job. You try to spit it out, but the shaman grabs your jaw and holds your mouth closed like an annoyed babysitter. You swallow, regret it immediately. But then, strangely, the nausea begins to ebb, just a little. Here's your history nugget. Paleolithic medicine wasn't all chanting and hand-waving. Early humans had surprising knowledge of medicinal plants. In some Neanderthal burial sites, archaeologists have found traces of yarrow, chamomile, and even poplar, plants known for their anti-inflammatory or pain-relieving properties. They didn't have pharmacies, but they did have millennia of trial and error. Mostly error, probably. And the fringe fact? There's evidence some early humans even practiced rudimentary surgery. Trepanation, drilling holes in the skull, was performed as early as 10,000 BCE. Some patients survived. You're not there yet, thankfully, but it is comforting or horrifying to know they had options. The fever doesn't leave quickly. You spend most of the day drifting in and out of shallow sleep, half lucid, your brain melting under the weight of sweat and bone-aching fatigue. Around you, the world keeps moving. You hear voices, the clatter of stone tools, the rhythmic scraping of hides. Someone is singing, low, wordless tones. The fire crackles, and once in a while someone places a warm stone beside you to push back the chill. You open your eyes just enough to see the shaman painting a line across your arm in what looks like charcoal paste. They're muttering something. Not to you, not really, more like through you. You close your eyes again and let the words flow past like wind. The debate of the day? How did early humans deal with illness and injury in a world where nothing was sterile, and most predators didn't need to wait for you to die before deciding you looked tasty? Anthropologists aren't sure. Some believe tribes had designated healers like your shaman here. Others think care was communal, everyone chipping in when someone went down. But clearly they understood something about infection, about comfort, about trying, because even now in your sweaty misery you're not alone. A child sits near your feet and offers you something, a carved bone with a hole in it. You have no idea what it's for, but you nod and take it, because that's the only gesture of thanks you can manage. Someone else refills your gourd. The fire is stoked higher. Your robe is changed for a cleaner one, slightly less crusty. You're being cared for, not coddled. Helped, not pitied. You're not the outsider today. You're the weak one, the sick one, the one who might not make it. But you're their sick one. By nightfall, the fever is still clinging to you like a second skin, but it's less fierce. You're sweating less. Your stomach has stopped threatening to leap out of your body. You sip water without gagging. You even sit up for a few seconds before flopping back down dramatically. Someone laughs. You're not sure who, but you think it might have been Scarjaw. And that's when it hits you. In a world with no thermometers, no antibiotics, no hand sanitizer, and definitely no urgent care clinics, this is the hospital. A smoke-filled cave, a bowl of leaf mud, and a group of people who still believe you're worth the trouble of dragging back to life. You fall asleep again, this time deeper. The fire hums beside you. The shaman is still there, feathers catching the firelight, humming some rhythm you can almost follow. You think you hear your name, if you even have one here, whispered once. Or maybe it's just the wind moving through the cave mouth. You sleep curled like a pebble near the warmth, your breath slow, your heart steady, for now. By the time you feel human again, or at least less like a half-cooked root vegetable rolled in old fur, the weather has taken a definite turn. The sky has gone from soft blue to heavy steel, and the air outside the cave is sharp with that cold, dry bite that means one thing: winter is coming. Not in the dramatic, brooding TV show sense, but in the way your body feels it first. Your fingers hurt before you realise the temperature dropped. Your knees start to ache. Every gust of wind carries tiny warnings, as if the land itself is muttering, "Better get ready. It's about to get mean out here." And oh yes, your tribe is preparing. There's a shift in everything now. The pace is faster, the tasks more urgent. People who once moved through the days with slow deliberation now work with purpose, stacking firewood, reinforcing hide shelters, scraping and stretching every leftover bit of mammoth hide. You're not told what to do, no one ever tells you anything, but you're handed tasks with the expectation that you'll figure it out, or at the very least not slow anyone else down. Your job today? Drying meat. Lots of it. You sit cross-legged near the fire with 3 others, threading strips of mammoth flesh onto sharpened sticks and placing them on a simple wooden frame. The smoke helps preserve the meat, drawing out the moisture and flavour while keeping insects away. Not that you've seen a single buzzing thing lately. The cold has taken care of that. The only thing buzzing now is the numbness in your toes. The smoke gets in your eyes and clings to your clothes. You've accepted that you will never smell clean again. Not in the modern sense, but you smell correct for the time, which is something. You ask yourself, not for the first time, how anyone survived this. The cold, the hunger, the constant slow march toward frostbite and starvation. There are no storehouses here, no freezers, no grocery runs when the stew gets low. It's just hope and hard work, and the quiet knowledge that not everyone makes it through. Historical truth? Winter was the great equalizer. Upper Paleolithic people didn't hibernate, but they might as well have. Some tribes sheltered in caves like yours, others built semi-permanent huts with mammoth bones and furs, pressing close together for warmth. Food was dried, stored, cached in pits if the ground wasn't frozen solid. And still many didn't survive the cold months. Mortality rates climbed, scarcity became a daily reality, and now you're in it. You help carry bundles of meat deeper into the cave, where the air is still cool but protected from wind and snow. Someone hands you a hardened gourd filled with animal fat, and you smear it over the meat with the others, an old trick to keep it from drying out too fast or freezing into inedible stone. Later you're pulled into another task, sorting tools. Not glamorous, but necessary. Everyone's blades are dulled from butchering, and the scrapers need sharpening. You sit with Scarjaw and 2 others, carefully examining each piece, deciding which can be fixed and which will need to be replaced. Your flint blade is holding up surprisingly well, though Scarjaw narrows his eyes at one edge and silently hands you a new flake. Message received. Fix it before it fails you. The wind outside starts to scream around midday. It wails through the cave's mouth like something angry and ancient. The fire grows, fed more frequently now, and extra hides are draped across the opening to block the cold. The whole space smells like fat and ash and people. It's unpleasant, sure, but you've stopped minding. You glance outside once and see a few brave figures still working, gathering firewood, checking traps, tying down bundles with sinew so they don't blow away in the storm. You're grateful not to be among them. Inside, the mood is not cheerful exactly, but focused, determined. There's an unspoken agreement here. Do your job, help each other, and maybe you'll live long enough to see the thaw. And that brings us to the oddball fact. There's evidence some prehistoric people may have used primitive calendars to track the seasons. Bones carved with notches, likely marking moon cycles, maybe even proto-astrological signs. Not because they were trying to write horoscopes, but because knowing when winter would arrive could mean the difference between life and death. As for scholarly debate, it's ongoing. Some argue that Paleolithic humans had no concept of seasons in the modern sense, just an intuitive understanding of cycles based on immediate experience. Others believe they observed patterns in the stars, in animal migrations, in the trees, and used those cues to prepare year after year. You're leaning toward the second theory now. These people know things. You can see it in the way they work, not rushed, not panicked, just practiced. They've done this before. By late afternoon, the snow starts falling, not heavy but steady. The world outside becomes soft and grey, and the horizon vanishes into white mist. The fire grows higher, more hides are dragged out. Everyone settles closer together. You're handed a cup of something warm, broth, probably. You drink it slowly, letting the warmth work its way into your stomach. Scarjaw sits beside you, sharpening a new blade with slow, deliberate strokes. Across the fire, one of the children plays with a bone doll, tracing lines in the dirt. The shaman walks by, cloaked in furs dusted with snow, and stops to look at you. They raise a finger, point at the cave walls, then at the fire, then at your chest. You nod. No idea what it means, but the moment feels weighty, so you treat it like it matters. That night you sleep pressed between two others. No room for modesty now, not when every degree of warmth counts. Your robe is stiff from smoke. Your hair smells like everything in the cave. But you're warm. You're alive. And when you wake, hopefully, you will be again. Winter is here, and you are not alone. The air in the cave has taken on a strange texture. Not just cold or smoky, though it's both of those things, but dense. You wake to it pressing against your chest like an extra blanket made of fog and damp soot. Your breath puffs visibly before your face, each exhale lingering a little too long in the air, curling like a hesitant ghost. The fire's already low, barely glowing, and most of the others are still asleep or pretending to be. You shift under the pile of furs and limbs, dislodging one sleepy grunt and a very disapproving foot to the ribs. Eventually, the need for warmth outweighs the need for comfort. You wriggle free of the pile, stiff and shivering, and shuffle to the fire. It's nothing now, just a pile of sleepy embers, faintly pulsing in the ash. You squat down and start adding kindling, coaxing it the way you've seen the others do, layering twigs and dried grass, blowing gently until the coals blink awake. But this morning there's a twist, literally. You're handed a fire drill. The shaman appears, cloaked in the usual theatrical garb, bones, feathers, what might be a bird foot tied into a braid, and sets a wooden bow and spindle in front of you like a challenge. Then they squat beside you, demonstrate once and nod. Your turn. You've seen people do this before. The bow with its sinew string, the spindle pressed vertically into a notch in a flat board. The motion looks simple. Pull the bow back and forth, spinning the spindle rapidly to create friction. Sparks, fire, warmth, survival. Easy, right? Wrong. Very wrong. Your first few attempts are laughable. The spindle wobbles, the bow snags. You nearly drop the entire thing in your lap, which would be the least glamorous way to burn to death in prehistory. The shaman watches silently, unimpressed. You try again, grip tighter, move smoother, focus. Eventually, after blisters have started to form and your arms are trembling, you see it. Smoke, just a thread at first, then a curl, then finally a tiny, delicate ember glowing in the dust like it knows how important it is. You quickly transfer it to the tinder bundle, blowing gently, coaxing it into flame like it's a baby you're trying to lull to sleep. It catches. A small flame, just enough. You look up, the shaman nods, and then walks away without a word. Historical note for your victory lap. Fire drills and hand-spun friction tools like these were widely used during the Paleolithic and beyond. They weren't just survival tools, they were rituals. The creation of fire wasn't guaranteed. It took effort, patience, and technique. The ability to make fire from scratch was revered, even feared. In many cultures, fire starters were seen as spiritually powerful. Quirky fire trivia. Some archaeological evidence suggests that early humans carried embers in dried fungus or bark, keeping fires alive while migrating rather than making a new one every time. Because honestly, when it takes 30 minutes of awkward bow wobbling to make one flame, you learn to keep that sucker lit. And here's the debate of the day. When exactly did humans learn to make fire? We know they used it long before they could create it, likely stealing flames from lightning-struck trees or lava flows. But when they figured out the tech, that's murky. Some sites suggest fire-making started as early as 400,000 years ago. Others say more like 100,000. Regardless, it was the great unlock. Warmth, light, cooking, protection. Fire changed everything. By mid-morning, the fire's roaring again, the cave warming slightly. You sit beside it, your hands still shaking, proud in the way only someone with soot-covered fingers and sootier eyebrows can be. Scarjaw walks by, sees the fire, sees your face, and gives the briefest of nods. You're starting to understand that in this world, a nod is basically a parade. With the cold getting worse and outside time limited, the day is spent in preparation. Furs are reinforced. New fires are lit in the back of the cave to keep the temperature up. Someone sets up a boiling pit, an old hole in the ground lined with hide, filled with water, into which fire-heated stones are dropped again and again until the water bubbles. You're pulled into a group sharpening bone needles. The tribe's clothing is mostly stitched hides, functional, not fashionable, but it takes maintenance. And threading sinew through a bone needle when your fingers are half frozen is a kind of agony that no textbook prepares you for. You work in silence, occasionally exchanging glances with the others. At one point, a child crawls into your lap and promptly falls asleep. You don't move for 20 minutes, not because you're touched by the gesture, though okay, it's a little heartwarming, but because you're afraid to wake the only warm thing within arm's reach. As the snow builds outside, falling in long lazy sheets, you start to notice something else, the stories. Not spoken stories exactly, more like sound and gesture. In the afternoon, a small gathering forms near the fire. One of the elders begins moving their hands in wide arcs, mimicking an animal, a chase, a fall. Others laugh, join in. It's a kind of communal theatre, no words needed. You catch the rhythm even if you don't understand every symbol. A hunter mimics the moment a mammoth turned on him. Someone else pretends to fall, dramatically writhing. The kids howl with laughter. And you, watching from the edge, realise this is their entertainment. Their history, their warning, their humour, all in one. You join in hesitantly, miming your pitiful fire drill attempts. It gets a chuckle. A few try to imitate you, flopping over dramatically, and suddenly the room is full of laughter. Not cruel, just shared. The shaman watches from the shadows, not smiling, but not stopping it either. Night comes early with the snow. The wind howls outside. The hides at the cave mouth flap and settle like breathing. You lie down closer to the fire than usual, sore and exhausted. Your fingers sting, but your chest is warm with something you don't quite have a name for. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's connection, or maybe it's just the fire, still flickering in your bones. You close your eyes to the sound of low laughter, the hum of a new story and the steady whisper of snow against stone. You've made fire, and now it keeps you. There's a moment, sitting alone near the fire the next day, when it hits you all at once, like a rock falling out of the sky, silent, fast, impossible to dodge. You're sitting there with your flint blade in one hand and a strip of dried sinew in the other, working on repairing your now very ugly but very beloved belt pouch. Your fingers move slowly, more from instinct than focus. The world around you continues in the usual prehistoric shuffle. People scraping hides, feeding the fire, muttering over cracked bones and unfinished spears, but you're somewhere else entirely. You stop, you blink, and you realise what your brain has been tiptoeing around for days now. You can't remember the sound of your own voice saying your name. You haven't heard anyone say it. You haven't needed it. You haven't needed words at all. Your entire identity, whatever it was before this, has gone quiet. You haven't thought about your phone in a while, or your job, or whether someone out there is wondering what happened to you. You haven't worried about email or social media, or the fact that your last known location is probably listed somewhere under weird missing person who disappeared without a trace. And that's the gut punch. What if you're never going back? Your hand tightens around the strip of sinew. The fire crackles beside you like it doesn't care one way or the other. You stare into it for a while, letting the orange glow soak into your eyes until your vision swims. You suddenly feel like you're floating, untethered, suspended between two worlds, belonging to neither. Here you are, dressed in furs, carrying a rock knife, eating stew from a gourd, and yet your brain is still hardwired for digital clocks and ceramic mugs and takeout menus. This is the existential crisis portion of your stay. You step away from the fire and out into the snow, needing air. The cold punches your lungs, shocking but clarifying. You walk slowly across the open space in front of the cave, boots crunching in the frost-crusted grass. The wind is sharp enough to make your teeth ache. You keep walking until the cave is just a warm glow behind you, until the world goes silent in that very specific winter way, like everything's holding its breath. You find a flat rock and sit. That's it. No ceremony, no dramatic tears. You just sit and let the weight of it settle. You're stranded in time. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. Here's your historical truth for the day. No human in recorded history has ever experienced time travel. Obviously. But people have always dreamed about it. Every civilization has stories, myths, entire religions built around the idea of stepping out of one time and into another. Most imagine it as a gift. You're starting to see it for what it really is. Disorientation that never ends. Your fringe fact? Some tribes across the world believed that dreams allowed you to travel through time, visit ancestors, speak to spirits, even glimpse the future. There's no evidence any of it was real, but there's a quiet power in the belief itself, a way to make sense of dislocation. You don't have that luxury. There's no map for this, no GPS for the soul. What would happen if you just stayed? No search party, no explanation. You become a blur in some grainy photo in the mysterious disappearances folder of a true crime blog. A stranger who vanished. Meanwhile, you're here, skin chapped and nose dripping, trying to stitch a piece of elk tendon into a belt pouch like it's the most important thing in the world. You sit until your hands go numb, then longer. The sun sinks slowly behind the hills, casting long shadows over the valley. You should go back, you know that. But you don't move, and then someone calls for you. Not by your name, you've never told them your name, but it's a sound they've come up with. A whistle, a sharp double note. It's become yours. You turn toward it automatically. Scarjaw is standing a little ways off, arms crossed, head tilted. His expression isn't readable, but it says enough. Come back, it's cold, you're being weird. So you do. You walk back through the snow, back to the fire, back to the smells and the smoke and the quiet glances that mean you're not alone, even if you feel like it. Inside, someone's stirring the stew. You sit down and are handed a bowl without a word. The warmth seeps back into your hands. You sip. You chew. You exist. Later, someone asks you for help preparing a broken spear. You nod. You fetch twine. Your fingers move automatically. It's all mundane, and yet it feels like a tether, like motion is the only way to keep from unravelling. And the debate of the day? Not among scholars, just in your own head. Are you still you? Is the person who once knew how to send emails and drink overpriced coffee and worry about calories even real anymore? Or are you just a soft, fragile animal now trying to make fire and avoid freezing to death? There's no answer, just muscle memory. At night, you lie close to the fire again, but sleep doesn't come easily. Your brain is loud for once, dragging up memories you thought were long buried. Your apartment, your name on mail, the way light hits pavement after rain, things that don't exist anymore. You roll over and look toward the cave wall. Your handprint is still there, faint but solid. Proof that you were, and maybe still are, someone, somewhere. You close your eyes, you dream of doors, of blinking lights, of cold, clean water from a tap. But even in the dream, your hands are stained with ash. By morning, the world is white. Not just snow on the ground, but snow in the air, snow caught in every tree branch, snow filtering into your nose every time you step outside the cave. It's as if someone tipped over the sky's flower jar and forgot to screw the lid back on. There's no horizon, just a vague blur where the hills used to be, and a sky that blends into the land like the whole world got smudged by a giant eraser. The cold, once something you noticed, has become something that lives inside your bones. You wake up with it, you sleep with it, it breathes alongside you. Still, life doesn't stop, it just shifts gears. The tribe huddles closer, everything's slower and quieter now. You've started noticing a rhythm to this. How, in winter, people move less, speak softer, eat longer. There are fewer chores outside the cave now, more things done sitting near the fire, mending tools, twisting cordage, sharing food, telling stories. Or whatever you want to call what happens after the second bowl of boiled root and bone broth. It begins in the evening, after the fire's been fed and everyone's belly is full enough to complain a little less. People gather into their usual clusters, and then something happens. You're not sure how it starts because there's no announcement. No, okay everyone, it's story time. It just begins. One of the women rises, swipes soot onto her face with her fingers, and starts moving. It's a dance, but not in the way you've seen in movies or tribal documentaries. This is different, slow, deliberate, with the long pauses, where her arms hang motionless before snapping into shape again. Her feet barely move, just tiny shifts in balance, her weight rolling from heel to toe like she's standing on water. She mimics animals, a bison, a hare, a bird who is swooping low. The entire cave goes still. Then she speaks, except it's not speech. It's more like vocalization. A pattern of grunts, hums, clicks, and sharp sounds that rise and fall with her movements. You don't understand a single word, but you feel it, the rhythm, the emotion, the meaning. You watch her become the animal she mimics, then the hunter chasing it, then the one who falls, and finally a fire burns between her hands, only imaginary, but everyone sees it anyway. When she finishes, there's no applause, just breath, shared, quiet breath, like everyone exhaled at once. Then someone else steps up, a man this time, with streaks of ash drawn down his arms and across his chest. His story is different, more aggressive. He stomps, growls, snaps his teeth. The children jump and giggle. The elders nod, watching carefully, as if grading the performance. You're sitting cross-legged, wide-eyed, absorbing every detail. No one looks at you like you shouldn't be here. You belong to the circle now. You've entered what you can only describe as a Paleolithic open mic night. Except instead of poetry slams and awkward guitar solos, it's ritual and rhythm and movement that stretches back farther than memory. Historical interlude. This kind of storytelling was likely the backbone of culture in the Upper Paleolithic. Before written language, before symbols carved in stone, there were bodies and sounds and firelight. Oral traditions, songs, dances, performances carried knowledge, taught survival, preserved memory. These weren't hobbies. They were the archive, the museum, the classroom, and your quirky tidbit. In some caves, evidence suggests performances like this were designed for sound. The best spots for echo, tight alcoves or domed chambers, were used to amplify voices, footsteps, even drum beats on stone. These weren't just natural shelters, they were acoustic theatres. You lean forward, trying to take it all in. Someone places a hand on your shoulder. It's the boy, the Neanderthal child, or at least that's how you still think of him, even though his group left days ago. But he stayed, and now he sits beside you like he's always been part of your circle. He hums along with the next performance, low and steady, eyes glowing in the firelight. When the next story ends, there's a pause, a moment of silence. Then, terrifyingly, eyes shift to you. Someone gestures. Go on. You shake your head, laugh awkwardly. No way. But then the shaman tilts their chin at you, slow and deliberate, and you realise this isn't a joke. They want you to perform. You stand up slowly, heart hammering, hands clammy. What do you have to offer? What does someone from the future, someone from office chairs and crosswalks and sitcoms perform in front of a tribe that's never seen electricity? So you do what you can. You crouch, you raise your arms, you imitate a predator, cat, a lion. You don't know, but your body remembers motion. PE class, yoga, late-night dances in your living room. You prowl, you pounce, you growl, you mime the kill. Then you freeze, you mimic fear, loss, hunger. You move in slow spirals, reaching for things you can't touch, dragging invisible burdens. You do what the woman did earlier, summon an imaginary fire, hands warming slowly in front of it. You feel ridiculous and weird, and so far from anything you ever thought you'd be doing with your life. But the cave is silent, watching. You finish by crouching again, arms crossed over your chest, a final breath blown into your hands like smoke. And when you open your eyes, no one laughs, no one speaks. The boy hums again, softly. Then someone else begins a new story and the moment passes. You sit down, heart still thudding. Scarjaw passes you a piece of bark with a smear of fat and berries. It's not applause, but it's acknowledgement, and it's enough. Later, you lie back beside the fire, still buzzing from the performance. The wind howls outside, but inside the cave it's warm with story, the air thick with breath and memory. You stare at the painted bison on the wall and wonder what stories they watched, what dances moved in their presence. You're not just surviving anymore, you're participating, and maybe, just maybe, you're starting to leave your own shape in the world. There's a scratching sound near the cave mouth, something light and rhythmic, not quite alarming, but persistent enough to wake you early. You shift under your hide, blinking blearily, hoping it's just the wind. It's not. Someone's moving outside, quick feet on snow, a shuffle, then a muffled whine. The fire beside you is still glowing softly, but the others are slow to rise. Winter has turned everyone sluggish. Even Scarjaw hasn't rolled over yet. You get up quietly, grabbing your robe and stepping past the sleepers. The air bites instantly, cold enough to stiffen your nostrils and set your teeth aching. But there's something out there. You hear it again, scratching. Then it comes into view. A shape just beyond the tree line, small, low to the ground and moving back and forth in short bursts like it's trying to decide whether it wants to be here at all. You crouch near the entrance and watch. It's not a deer. Too small, not a human, definitely not another tribe. And it's not prey, not the way it's moving. Cautious, curious. Then it steps closer and you finally get a good look. It's a wolf. A young one by the looks of it. Lean, ribs faintly visible beneath the winter fur. Nose twitching as it sniffs the cave's scent trail. It takes another hesitant step, ears perked, then freezes when it sees you watching. You don't move. It's just you and this scruffy, wide-eyed canine staring at each other across a thin stretch of snow. Now, your memory dredges something up. Something about how wolves and humans weren't always enemies. That long before dogs were curled up on couches, they were fellow scavengers, both circling the same carcasses, both watching the same flickering fires from opposite sides. Somewhere in all that silent watching, a truce began. And maybe this is how it started. The wolf doesn't growl, doesn't flee. It sniffs again, then lowers itself slowly to the ground, belly down, eyes alert. Not submission, just observation. You crouch lower too, gently reaching for a scrap of dried meat from your pouch. You toss it. The meat lands a few feet in front of the animal. The wolf flinches, waits, then slowly it creeps forward, sniffs, snatches the meat, retreats. You don't move again, just let it happen. Later you're back inside, the fire now properly stoked and your hands warming around a cracked bowl of broth. Scarjaw eyes you when he sees the snow on your shoulders, but says nothing. No one saw the wolf. Or maybe they did and they just assumed it would leave. But it doesn't. It comes back the next morning. Same time, same posture. Waiting near the edge of the trees, you offer another scrap. It creeps closer, not much, just a few inches. This continues for days, a quiet rhythm. Each time the wolf trusts you a little more, and each time you wonder what exactly you're doing. Historical fact. Evidence suggests that humans and wolves may have formed symbiotic relationships as early as 30,000 years ago. Bones found in Upper Paleolithic sites show wolves buried near humans, sometimes with them. The earliest domestic dogs likely evolved from wolves that lingered near human camps, scavenging scraps, gradually adapting to proximity. Here's your fringe detail. Some researchers argue this bond may not have started with food, but with protection. Wolves could sense danger in the dark, track prey, ward off threats. In return, humans gave warmth, food, and eventually names. Whether that first wolf was tamed through affection or practicality remains a topic of scholarly side-eye and heated debates in faculty lounges. Today your debate is much more personal. Is this thing your friend, or is it just waiting for you to get weak enough to be dinner? It's hard to say. You don't get cuddles, you don't get tail wags. You get stares, long, blinking stares from yellow eyes that could be reading your soul or deciding where to bite first. But you keep feeding it anyway. One evening the shaman joins you near the mouth of the cave and watches the wolf from a distance. They don't speak, just study the animal with that same expression they use when painting symbols or mixing those pungent mystery brews. Then they hand you something. A leather thong, knotted at the ends, with a small carved bone tied in the middle. A fang, maybe, or a claw. You take it, puzzled, and glance up at them. They don't explain. They just press it into your palm and return to the fire. You wear it that night, and the wolf doesn't show. The next day it returns, closer than before, closer than ever. Close enough now that you see how its fur clumps around the shoulders, how one of its ears is nicked, how its tail sways just slightly when you kneel down. You don't try to touch it. Not yet, but your hand hovers, palm open, resting in the snow between you. And then, quickly, just once, it nudges your fingers with its nose. That's it. Just a moment. But it feels like something bigger, something that stretches back tens of thousands of years. You don't tell the others. Not because it's a secret, but because you wouldn't know how to explain it anyway. The wolf isn't a pet, it isn't a spirit. It isn't a sign, it's just there, choosing to be near you. At night you sleep with your pouch pressed close and the fang token tied tightly around your wrist. You dream of footfalls in snow, of golden eyes, of a heartbeat that echoes yours from the edge of the firelight. Maybe tomorrow the wolf will be gone, or maybe not. Either way, something's changed. You're not just surviving now, you're forming bonds. The snow begins to rot. Not melt, rot. That's the only way to describe the slushy, muddy chaos that starts creeping across the land as the temperatures inch above freezing. It's not pretty, it's not cinematic. It's wet, heavy, and sticks to everything you own. The white blanket that once made the world feel clean and quiet now turns brown and grey, mixing with ash and animal droppings and months of foot traffic. You spend most of your time slipping, sliding, and cursing silently into the wind. But beneath the mess, something stirs. You smell it first. Damp earth, mould, something vaguely green. Then the trees whisper it. Then the air warms just enough that your breath no longer fogs with every exhale. Spring isn't here exactly, but it's peeking over the edge of the world, grumbling to itself and stretching its limbs. It's like the land is clearing its throat before the big return. The cave shifts with it. People move differently now, less hunched, less huddled. There's talk in gestures and sounds of animals moving again, of fish returning to the streams, of migration. Scarjaw starts checking and rechecking the hunting spears. One of the women sharpens an axe stone until her fingers bleed. The restlessness is contagious. You catch it too. You wake earlier, move faster, feel your joints ache a little less with each passing day. Your hands have grown used to stone tools, your legs to rough terrain. Even your sense of smell, dulled for most of your life, now recognises things like drying meat turned fat coming rain. You're no longer just surviving here, you're adapting. One morning, while fetching water from the half-frozen stream, you see your reflection. And it's jarring. Not because it's shocking, but because it isn't. You don't look like your old self. The features are still there, sure. Eyes, mouth, all that. But they're wrapped in someone new, someone leaner, rougher. You haven't shaved, you haven't washed properly. Your robe is stained with life and death. Your eyes seem deeper. Tired, yes, but aware. Settled. And when you smile, because you do, it's real. Not perfect, but honest. Back in the cave, the rituals start again. The shaman moves with more purpose now. No more midwinter humming sessions. Now they paint. They draw symbols in charcoal and ochre, not just on the cave wall, but on people. Hands, foreheads, chests. You get a spiral over your heart smudged with animal fat to keep it from fading too quickly. You're not told what it means, but no one else gets the same one. And that, for some reason, rattles you more than it should. A day later, you're woken early by Scarjaw. He doesn't say anything, just gestures. Come with me. You throw on your robe and boots, grab your belt and knife and follow. He leads you into the woods, past the stream, into the thinning trees. The world is wet and quiet. No birds yet, no insects. Just branches cracking underfoot and your breath catching in your throat as you realise this is the first time in months you've left the cave without a full party. He walks fast, purposefully. You follow like a dog on a leash, half terrified, half exhilarated. Then he stops, points, and you see it. A clearing, not much, just a flat space ringed by stones. In the centre, bones, scattered, old, picked clean, arranged in strange arcs, like ribs emerging from the earth. The place has a presence, like something was here once and left its breath behind. Scarjaw kneels beside a rock. He pulls something from his satchel. It's a jawbone, clean, carved with notches. He places it carefully on the stone and steps back. You don't ask, you don't speak, you just watch. He points to the ground, you kneel too, and for a long time you both just sit there in silence, facing the bones, the wind brushing your face like fingers. This is sacred ground. You know it without needing to be told. Here's your historical fact. Burial sites from the Upper Paleolithic suggest an evolving sense of ceremony. People buried their dead with tools, ornaments, sometimes even animal companions. Graves were often revisited, maintained, treated as living places of memory rather than final resting spots. And now your fringe fact. Some skeletons have been found with red ochre sprinkled over the body, a pigment often linked to blood, rebirth or transformation. Scholars still argue over its meaning. Ritual, art, medicine, maybe all three, maybe something else entirely. Scarjaw pulls a hide from his bag, unwraps it, and hands you what's inside, a small bundle of feathers bound together with sinew. You take it. There's no ceremony, no speech, just a look that says, leave it here, say nothing. But remember, you press the bundle into a nook between the stones. It feels right, like adding a note to a song that's been playing longer than you've been alive. On the walk back, Scarjaw doesn't speak, but once you near the cave again, he places his hand on your shoulder. Brief, heavy, then gone. That night the wolf returns. It curls closer than before, just a few feet away near your sleeping spot. Its eyes reflect the firelight like molten coins. You don't touch it, but when you lie down, you feel safer than you did the night before. The days pass, the snow thins. One morning you hear birdsong, actual birdsong, and that's when you know the season is turning. The cave begins to breathe again, not just to survive, but to live. Children run more, people sing more. Laughter returns in longer bursts. You sit by the fire, sharpening your blade, the wolf at your feet, and think, maybe you're not going back. Maybe that's not a tragedy anymore. You wake to the sound of dripping, not the ominous kind like blood or something cinematic and tragic, just water. Sweet, regular, totally unremarkable water, but it's dripping from the cave roof, splashing into shallow puddles that have formed in the cracks of the stone. You roll onto your side and listen to it for a while, and the more you hear, the more your chest tightens with a strange kind of joy. That sound means thaw. That sound means winter is finally truly retreating, and the cave knows it. Everyone's moving like they've been shaken awake from some long, soggy dream. You spot one of the women scraping the final bits of winter fat from a mammoth hide, tossing the refuse aside like she's already thinking about fresh kills. The kids are louder. Their game's more chaotic. They dash around the cave with small sticks and shout strange half-formed stories that make no sense to you, but seem incredibly important to them. Scarjaw is sharpening tools again, like always, but now he's doing it outside the cave mouth, on a flat stone that's finally dry enough to sit on. You follow him out, Communal, blinking into the sunlight. Real sunlight. It's weak, watery, and gives off the kind of heat you barely feel on your skin, but it's light. You squint up into it and wonder when the last time of Eods was that you saw the sun so clearly. It might have been, 3-4 months ago? Time's collapsed into one long, smoked-out season. Today the cave empties. It doesn't happen all at once, but by midday you realise more than half of the people have gone. Small hunting and foraging groups leave in waves, carrying tools, baskets and slings. You're sent with one of them, not because you're particularly good at anything, but because you've proven you're not a complete liability anymore. You join a group of 5 heading east into the thinning forest. There's a sense of anticipation, even excitement. Everyone is sniffing the air, watching the ground, scanning the trees for all signs of life. You try to do the same, pretending like you know what you're looking for, but mostly you just copy what the others do. And eventually you find tracks. Deer, probably. Maybe something smaller. The oldest man in your group crouches beside a patch of wet earth and grunts, pointing at the split hoof prints. He touches the track, sniffs the wind, then gestures. You all follow. The walk is long and uneven. Your legs ache from wading through cold puddles and half-melted snow. But eventually you come upon a clearing, soft with new grass and buzzing, faintly with the sound of insects. Insects, the first in ages. And in the clearing, a deer. Small, thin, nibbling on the edge of a bush, oblivious. You don't speak. No one does. Everyone moves like shadows. One hunter readies a spear, fingers tight, breath held. Then, whoomp! It's done in seconds. The deer jumps, stumbles, collapses. There's a rush of movement, a second spear, a shout, and then silence. When you approach, the others are already working. They slit the throat. Let the blood spill into the earth. Say nothing. There's reverence here. Not dramatic or ceremonial, just quiet respect. Food is life, and life always comes from something else dying. That truth is everywhere here. No skimming it. You're handed a knife and told to help. You've never skinned anything before, and you're pretty sure you do a bad job of it. But no one scolds you. They just show you the right angles, the proper tension, the way to work the blade so you're peeling the hide, not hacking it. It's messy, sure, but it's not grotesque, it's purposeful. And then there's the meat. Carefully cut, divided, packed in hide sacks. Nothing wasted. The bones are cleaned, the organs sorted, some bits will go back fresh, others will be smoked, a few are eaten on the spot. You try a bit of the liver, still warm, handed to you by one of the hunters. It tastes metallic, earthy, not bad, just real. Historical moment. Seasonal hunting was critical to Upper Paleolithic survival. Tribes moved with the animals, following migrations, adapting to new growth cycles, reading the land. Hunting wasn't just a skill, it was a shared rhythm. And each kill wasn't just about calories, it was community, hierarchy, ritual and story all rolled into one. Now your fringe fact. In some regions, archaeologists have found ancient hunting traps, rows of stones or wooden stakes used to funnel animals into kill zones. Some were sophisticated, communal undertakings that required planning and teamwork. Stone Age engineering, basically. On the way back, the mood is lighter. The weight of meat in your arms feels like victory. The oldest hunter hums a strange, tuneless melody. One of the younger ones grins and mimics the deer's final flop, earning a few chuckles. You don't speak, but they don't ignore you anymore. You're part of the group now, not a guest, not a stray. When you return, the others see what you're carrying and break into movement. The meat is taken, prepped. The hide is cleaned. The skull set aside, maybe for tools or ornament. Scarjaw gives your group a nod, then one to you specifically. You sit near the fire that night with tired arms and blood under your nails, watching the shaman press red pigment into someone's hairline, drawing the shape of an arrow. You feel changed, not just from the hunt, but from how natural it felt. As if your old self, the one who used to order sandwiches online and complain about morning meetings, was the costume. And this is what's underneath. You don't dream that night, just sleep, deep and unbroken. And when you wake up, the wolf is curled at your feet. Its fur is warm, and you don't question it. The days grow longer, unmistakably so. You notice it first in the firelight, not because it fades, but because it arrives later, less urgently. The cave stays lit long after dinner, golden shafts of dusk stretching across the stone floor like sleepy animals curling into corners. People linger more now, less hunched against the dark, talking in low murmurs or humming tuneless songs while they patch up gear. Even the smoke seems lighter these days, rising lazily toward the ceiling, instead of clinging to everything like a warning. The shaman begins painting again. You watch as they grind ochre into fine powder, mixing it with water and animal fat, stirring it with something that looks suspiciously like a rib bone. This time the wall near the back of the cave becomes their canvas. Not the front, not where the handprints and mammoths are. This is deeper, more hidden, more sacred maybe. At first the images are abstract, spirals, jagged lines, dots in patterns that feel like math but aren't. Then animals take shape. Wolves, deer, birds with wings spread wide. A handprint appears, not pressed but outlined. It's just a gap in the colour, a ghost of a hand, one that could be yours. You can't prove it, but your chest aches when you see it, like some small thread inside you's been tugged. Then one night the shaman pulls you aside. They hand you a bowl. Inside, pigment. Red, black. A finger is dipped. Your hand is taken, then guided, slowly, deliberately, to the wall. You press your palm into the surface and they smear the paint around it, just like the others. You pull away. There's your hand, on a cave wall that hasn't seen the sun for tens of thousands of years. You stare at it. Heart thudding. You're part of the story now. It's surreal. Back in your old life, you were a ghost on the internet, a username, an icon. Now, your handprint is literal, permanent. Unless the cave collapses or the earth explodes, some future archaeologist might find that print and think, this was someone. Here's your historical anchor. Cave paintings like these, especially those in places like Chauvet and Lascaux, date back 30,000 to 40,000 years. They are not random doodles. Many are found in acoustically resonant areas of caves, which suggests ritual, performance, maybe even trance states. These paintings weren't art for art's sake. They were experiences. And the fringe theory? Some researchers think these hand stencils, especially those where the negative space is used, could represent more than identity. They might symbolise a reaching, a connection, a request, or even a message to the future. A prehistoric version of I was here. As you stare at your print, the shaman murmurs something in that whispery voice of theirs. You don't know the words, but you feel the weight. It's not praise or poetry, it's instruction. You're expected to remember. Later that night, a storm rolls in. Not snow this time, rain. Heavy, thick, cleansing rain that drums against the rock and rushes down through the cracks in the cave mouth. You and the others huddle close to the fire, every hide draped across your shoulders or over the children. The water runs in rivulets through the outer edge of the cave, carving little paths in the dirt like nature's own etchings. You don't sleep, not deeply. The sound of the rain is both soothing and sharp, pulling at something in you. You lie awake, eyes open, watching the smoke spiral up through the half-shadowed ceiling. And you think about home, about your old home, not because you miss it exactly, but because it's faded. Like a dream, the walls of your apartment are the colour of your bedsheets, the shape of your toothbrush, all just static now. When you try to picture your old life, it's like trying to remember a movie you watched once when you were sick. A version of yourself that feels embarrassingly soft. The cave is real now. Your calloused hands, your worn robes, the scratches on your ankle from gathering wood. The wolf beside you curled up and snoring faintly like an old man. This is your life. No glowing screens, no electric hum, just people, fire, blood, stone, paint. The next day, when the storm fades, the cave lets out a collective sigh. Everyone moves again. The mood is different. Not just spring restless, but something deeper, something ceremonial. It begins in the late afternoon. The shaman gathers people one by one, pressing pigment into palms and foreheads. Scarjaw wears a strip of hide tied around his bicep now, marked with red streaks. Others carry small bone charms or wear feathers twisted into their hair. You're not told what it means, but it's clear. Something is about to happen. You're ushered into the back of the cave again. The firelight barely reaches here. The walls are close. The air smells like earth and smoke and paint. And then the chanting starts. It's low at first, just the shaman. Then others join, rhythmic, like breath. Like heartbeats, you don't know the words, but you feel them. You sit in a circle, the fire is low, throwing shapes onto the stone. Someone passes around a bowl. You sip. It's bitter, earthy, tinged with something sharp that makes your tongue feel like it's curling backward. You swallow and the world shifts slightly. The walls begin to move. Not literally, you know that, but your eyes don't. The paintings seem to ripple, the animals flicker. The handprints pulse with breath. Someone beside you starts to sway, murmuring. Another begins to cry softly. You feel a warmth spread through your limbs like you're melting into the cave itself. Historical theory time. There's speculation that cave art wasn't created in a sober state of mind. Some believe that ancient humans used natural hallucinogens, mushrooms, roots, fermented substances, to enter trance states before creating or performing these rituals, not to party, but to connect. To bridge the seen and unseen. Tonight you understand it. You sit there vibrating in silence as the cave becomes not just a place, but a presence, a memory, a living thing. And when it ends, when the chanting fades, the flames shrink, and the others slowly rise and drift off to sleep, you stay behind. Just for a moment. You press your palm to your handprint again, and this time you whisper your name. Not your ancient name, not the sound the tribe gave you, not the whistle. Your real name. It sounds small, but it's still there. And the cave keeps it. The world is green now, clumsily, unevenly, like it's remembering how to be alive. New growth pushes through the frostbitten soil in awkward, enthusiastic spurts. Moss creeps up tree trunks in fuzzy, impatient patches. Shrubs bloom with cautious confidence. You wake one morning and the hills have gone from shades of grey and brown to a stubborn, vibrant green. It's not beautiful in the way postcards are beautiful. This isn't curated or soft. This is raw, wet, bursting life, chaotic and loud, and with it everything changes. The cave is no longer the centre, becomes background. Home base, the heartbeat shifts to the open world, to movement. You're waking earlier, walking farther, carrying more. No one declares a change in season or waves a flag, but the message is clear, it's time to move again. Time to forage, to hunt, to follow the herds that have come slipping back into the valleys and across the ridgelines. Scarjaw leads a group out before sunrise one day. You're with him, you, and 6 others, including the child who now never leaves your wolf's side. That's a new development. The wolf, yes, your wolf, even if you're still not sure how that happened, now travels with you openly. No more skulking around camp edges. It pads beside you like it always belonged here, ears flicking at every sound, tail low and lazy, only occasionally glancing at you with what might be affection or judgment, probably both. This isn't a hunting party exactly, it's more of a roaming survey, a slow, quiet sweep across familiar ground. You stop at old caches, pits dug months ago, covered in brush and stone meant to preserve meat or tools or fire-starting bundles. Some are still intact, others have been raided by animals or rot. You help restock what you can, repair what's worth salvaging. It's a strange feeling, maintenance, not of objects but of land, as if you're caretaking something larger than yourself, something tribal, generational. Later you come upon a hill. From the top you can see everything, the river, winding and glinting, like it's just remembering how to flow, the distant tree line softened now by new leaves, and in the far-off haze, a plume of smoke. Another group, maybe one of your own, maybe not. Scarjaw watches the smoke for a long time. He doesn't move, doesn't blink, just watches. You do the same. He doesn't speak, but you can feel the weight of the question, friend or stranger. You don't find out, or not today. He turns and moves on and you follow. By evening you settle in a small clearing. There's a fire, a modest one, just enough for cooking and warmth. The others speak softly, sharing observations, trails seen, scat identified, signs of India movement. You nod like you understand it all. Some of it you actually do. You sleep curled in your robe, the wolf pressed behind your legs like a breathing pillow, the child nestled against your side already snoring gently. The air smells like damp grass and old ash. Here's your historical nugget. Spring and early summer were crucial for Paleolithic survival, not just for resources, but for connection. Tribes that had spent winter in isolation often met during these months. They exchanged goods, partners, stories, formed alliances, renewed ties. You're beginning to suspect you're heading toward one of those meetings. Now for your fringe detail. Some sites suggest that musical instruments, simple flutes made from bird bones, were played during these gatherings. Rhythms passed down without writing, shared only through breath and memory. Music was more than entertainment. It was identity, a way to announce we are here and we are still us. You wake in the middle of the night to a sound, soft, high, rhythmic, not dangerous, just strange. Someone is playing a flute. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the child or the wolf. Across the fire, one of the women sits with her back to you, blowing into a long, thin bone. The sound is haunting, lonely but beautiful, like the wind is singing back to itself. She doesn't acknowledge you, just keeps playing, her fingers moving slowly over the holes. It's not a song, not in the structured way you'd think of one, more like a story being told sideways. You lie back down, staring up at the stars between the trees. They're so bright out here, so there. You can't remember the last time you looked at stars back home, your real home, if that word still applies. The city's sky was always washed out, dulled by light pollution and deadlines. These stars, though, they don't blink politely, they blaze, and for a second you feel dizzy just looking at them, like you might fall into the sky. In the morning, Scarjaw leads you to a narrow valley. There you find them, deer, dozens of them, grazing in the new grass, ears twitching, tails flicking. They don't see you yet. You and the others crouch in the brush, breath held. No one throws a spear? Not yet. This isn't a kill, it's a confirmation you found the herd. Scarjaw gives a satisfied grunt. One of the others marks a tree with a stone. The child laughs quietly, and the wolf watches the deer with mild interest, like it knows better than to chase something it won't catch today. You return to camp that night, muscles aching, but spirits high. There's stew waiting, actual stew with roots and meat and something vaguely spicy that makes your nose run. You sit around the fire with everyone else, and for once, you don't feel like a visitor. You don't feel like an imposter. You're just you, in this moment, in this tribe, with dirt under your nails and ash in your hair and a new scar forming on your forearm where you scraped against a flint shard earlier. You eat. You laugh once, out loud. It surprises even you. And as the stars rise again, the flute returns. But this time it doesn't sound lonely. It sounds like home. You know it's the last night before you even hear anyone say it. There's something in the air, thicker than smoke, heavier than the usual sleepy quiet that follows a long day. People move like they have already started saying goodbye, even if no one's going anywhere just yet. Packs are checked. Tools are tied down. Extra food is shared. Fires are fed, not for warmth tonight, but for ceremony, for meaning. Even the shaman looks different, dressed in more feathers than usual, face painted with new lines that gleam darkly in the firelight, as if the soot itself has weight. You sit near the centre of it all, your robe stiff with ash and grease, your legs sore from walking, your hands calloused and brown from weeks of hunting and scraping and fire feeding. You've earned every blister, every smudge. Even your scars feel like something more now, like marks of passage. No one says the words, but you know what this is. Tomorrow your group will move on. Not just another small hunt or forage sweep migration, the real kind. The kind that takes weeks. You've been hearing whispers in body language for days now. Scarjaw gesturing toward the horizon, the shaman murmuring over a pile of ochre and flint, people packing bundles too tightly to be for a day trip. And the wolf? The wolf knows too. It's pacing tonight. Not anxiously, just alert, scanning the cave's mouth with the eyes that have already seen what lies beyond. It knows the trails ahead. You wonder how far it'll go with you. At sunset, the stories begin. Not the goofy kind from winter, where someone pretends to fall in a mammoth hole and gets mock scolded by the elders. These are different, slower, heavier. One woman paints lines across her arms and tells the story of a fire that walked like a man. Another traces circles in the dirt while humming about a spirit that lives inside the rain. Then Scarjaw stands up, and you've never seen him do this before. He doesn't speak at first, just walks toward the fire, stoops and lifts a charred branch. He holds it in one hand and makes 3 short movements, slashes through the air, symbols maybe, or just motions everyone else understands. Then he points to the stars, one specific cluster, shimmering just above the cave mouth. He makes the shape again. Then he looks at you, everyone does, and you realise with a slow chill down your spine that this part is about you. Scarjaw steps back. The shaman steps forward. They speak, not in that strange whispering language they use during healing, but clearly, like they want you to understand, you don't. Not the words, but the intent is unmistakable. You've been marked, accepted, changed. Whatever you were before, lost, time traveller, cave trespasser, glorified deer chaser, you're not that anymore. You're part of the circle now, not just tolerated, included, maybe even claimed. The shaman steps closer and presses something into your hand. It's a tooth. Not human, not wolf. Something bigger. You turn it over. A hole is bored through the top, smooth and perfect. A pendant. A symbol, your symbol. No one claps, no one cheers. But the moment is louder than all of that. Here's your final historical thread to pull. Archaeological sites have unearthed carved amulets. Teeth, shells, bones, worn as symbols of status, identity and belonging. Sometimes decorated, sometimes left plain, often found buried with their wearers. These weren't just fashion, they meant you belonged somewhere. Fringe theory. Some anthropologists believe that when people wore these items, they weren't just carrying a symbol. They were connecting to the object's spirit, a part of the animal, a part of the earth, a quiet pact between species. You look across the fire, the wolf meets your eyes. Maybe that theory isn't so fringe after all. The night deepens, someone drums, not with an instrument, but with their palms against a hollow log, slow and even, a rhythm like breath, like footsteps, like the path ahead already being walked. You sit back, the pendant clenched in your fist, and listen, and then you dream. But it's not your usual sleep dream. It feels bigger, older. You walk through the cave again, only now the walls pulse with light. Not from fire, but from within the rock itself. The handprints glow, yours glows brightest. The wolf walks beside you, but it's larger, almost human-shaped in the shoulders. You're barefoot. The floor is soft. You walk through the cave, then out into stars, and then you wake up. It's not yet dawn, but everyone is moving. Quiet, efficient motion. Packs slung. Fire doused. Children lifted onto shoulders. You do the same. Grab your satchel, tie your robe, check your blade. You hang the pendant around your neck. It feels like it's always been there. Scarjaw nods. You nod back. You fall into step. The cave shrinks behind you with each footstep. It doesn't disappear. It just becomes something you carry now, instead of something you live inside. A memory, a shape in your spine. You pass the trees, the stones, the bones. The painted walls fade, the sky brightens. The wolf walks ahead, the child laughs. You breathe in spring and walk forward. You don't know what's next, but you're ready. So here you are, standing at the edge of a valley that stretches so wide it makes the sky feel like it's been peeled open. The wind carries the smell of new grass and river water, and the morning sun hits your face in a way that makes you squint and smile without meaning to. You've walked far, days now, with the others, through fields where giant birds nest in the reeds and forests that creak with unseen animals. The cave is long behind you, the one that held your first fire, your first shared meal, your first muddy, awkward dances in the dark. You still wear the tooth around your neck, still carry the flint blade on your belt, but your hands aren't clumsy anymore. They're worn in, skilled, familiar with the work. The calluses are real, so's the strength in your legs. You used to wince at every splinter, every scratch. Now you barely notice. The wolf still walks nearby. It doesn't follow you anymore. It walks with you. That feels important. You look at the others, the tribe you never asked for, never planned to know, and now can't imagine losing, and realise something. The world you left behind may never come back. But this one? You belong to it now, not just as a ghost or a time-lost observer, but as a thread in the pattern, a handprint on the wall. So wherever you are tonight, maybe curled up under blankets in a soft bed, maybe listening with earbuds under a dark ceiling, take a breath. Let the noise of the world fade. Let the cave grow quiet. Let the fire die down, gentle and low, and sleep, traveller. You've earned it.